Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, wherever you are. Again, hello and welcome to Black Travel Summit. Thank you to all those who are rejoining us and have joined us yesterday. Thank you for those who are joining us for the first time today. It's a pleasure to have all of you here with us. My name is Anita, and I'm the founder and CEO of Black Travel Summit. Again, thank you for joining us on our movement webinar, and we hope that you enjoy watching as much as we enjoyed planning. Today, you'll have access to more amazing conversations, engaging activities, and giveaways. You'll be hearing from people like Soares and how to build your own travel business, from Certified Africa and how to invest in Africa, and many, many more. Make sure to listen throughout, share your experiences and what sessions you enjoy the most, and make sure to also tag us on your social media, whether on IG, Facebook, or Twitter at Black Travel Summit. We'd like to thank our sponsors again, Hyatt Hotels, the Black Travel Box, Realm Concept Market, Pure Camilla, by Aaron Wallace, Drink Our High G, and would also like to thank our partners, Dream Defenders, the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau, and all of our other partners listed on our website and in our expo booth that you can enjoy at any time. Make sure to take a look at our networking and sessions as well, and go ahead and meet some people, make some connections, make some friends, and make some connections for future collaborations as well. Again, thank you for joining us. Up next is Megan Milan, our travel influencer for the day. Enjoy.
Hi, everybody. My name is Megan Milan. I'm a model as well as travel influencer, and I have my own travel company. Today, I'm going to talk to you guys about basically how I started and a few travel tips. If you guys have any questions, you can ask me whatever. So I started traveling. My first trip was actually to Bali, and I went from China to Bali, and I went all by myself. The trip was for 1.5 weeks, and I went through a different travel agency. So it was a travel agency that works with different influencers, and that's how I started to do my travel influencing. So I would work with different hotels, different restaurants, and different event places, starting in Bali. And then after I did Bali, I did Cuba, Mexico, and then it just went on from there. And once I started to get the connections with the different hotels and different marketing perspectives, I eventually started my own agency. So this is to basically help people who are young and Black and want different deals or don't know where to go, because I noticed that when I travel, there isn't that many Black people or Black or brown people. And I just wanted to change that. So basically, that is what got me started, as well as wanting to educate people on different cultures. I visited Bali years ago. You'll love it. Yes, Bali is one of my favorite places to travel. It's also really cheap. So if you're going on a trip for the first time, I would definitely suggest Bali. How did you first start booking gigs as an influencer? Well, as an influencer or a travel influencer, because I do fashion and beauty influencing, and it's totally different from travel influencing. To be honest, the two have nothing to do with each other. And most travel companies, like if you want to work for them, you have to have travel content. So my beauty and fashion work didn't even really help me in the travel industry. You can start off doing bookings with restaurants because it's small. So if you want to start influencing for travel, I would start off with restaurants. Every country, every city, everybody has restaurants. So if you start even in your own hometown and then venture out, they'll see that you've already worked with restaurants. And then so when you go to other countries, they'll be more open to working with you as well. And then you just transfer it to the hotels and etc. And then one thing that I learned recently, so a lot of people ask me about traveling by yourself. One thing I learned that there's certain countries and certain places that are good for that, and there's certain countries and places that are not good for that, especially as a young Black woman places like, Bali, Southern Asia are like perfect for traveling alone. Places like Tulum, maybe somewhere where it could be peaceful and not that many people. Places like China and Russia, things that have a lot going on, I would suggest not going alone. Go with a partner or meet up with somebody, especially as a woman. So basically, Luxe Travel Agency is my agency. I have different models who can get booked. I have a network where you can learn different tips. There's travel guides. There's history. I'm getting a map input now so you guys can go in and search different places. It's basically just to help the traveler, whether you're experienced or have no experience. It's a network to help people. For restaurants, how do you approach them? Are you reaching out to them to tell them you are reviewing their restaurant? It all just depends. Like if you're going to another country, let's say you go to Morocco and you want to work with different restaurants, what I would do is search up restaurants around. Some that are popular or that aren't. If you go on Instagram and see that they work with influencers, then I would just reach out. There's been times when like I was in Italy and I went to a small mom and pop shop and they had amazing food, but not that many customers. So then we'd ask, do you want any promotion? And for the most part, especially if it's a small shop, I'll do it for free just because, help building the community. When you travel places, you kind of do want to help out. So it could go either way. You can either ask or they can approach you, but most of the time you'll probably ask because they could think you're another customer. And they have restaurants, like activity places, hiking. You could get creative with it. You could really promote whatever you want, as long as it has to be beneficial for you and the company. So one of my main questions is, how do you know the currency? The biggest thing, one of my biggest tips for you guys is to check currency before you go to the country, because a lot of times you'll get there and they'll lie to you at the airport. They'll lie to you when you're getting an exchange. A lot of times I've been played. So the best thing to do is look it up just to make sure, because they will lie and, finesse you out of some money. What's the best piece of advice you've received? Also, I'm in love with your hair. Oh, thank you so much. The best piece of advice I've received travel-wise, that's hard. There's so many good ones. I have no expectations, because when you travel, there's lots of room for error, whether it's good or bad. And if you go and you just go to just enjoy the culture and enjoy being away, I think it works out best just to be open, because when you travel, you don't know exactly where you're going. And also, another thing, be polite, especially for Americans. I know a lot of times when I go different places, they complain about how Americans are rude. We're used to our fast-paced life. And I think we have to understand that everything isn't ran as it's ran where we're from, if you know what I mean. Is it necessary to have a media kit in the beginning as a travel influencer? Yes. Yes. I remember when I first started, I didn't have one. I just made one on, there's an app called Canva, Canva, and you can make media kits on there. And I would just put up a few travel photos. That's really what they want to see. Like for me, I think a lot of the companies worked for me at first because I wasn't a travel influencer, but I was good at taking photos. So you can get in many ways. You can be a photographer, you could be a creative director, you could work in marketing. The possibilities are endless. You just have to have something to offer the brand that is beneficial. So what are some more tips I could tell you guys? Cab fare. Always check cab fare before you go as well, because they will get you. And if you don't know something, don't even ask them. Ask Google, because if you want to ask them something about money and they're going to be the ones taking care of you, they will take advantage. There's a lot of ways to take advantage. I mean, the easiest thing to do is take advantage of a foreigner because, obviously we don't know the customs and we don't know the rules. Do you do collaborations with other influencers or travel agents? Yes, I do. My company works with different influencers, so different travel influencers, sometimes fashion, but most of the brands want travel content. So even if you have like 1 million followers and you have no travel content, a lot of the companies won't want to work with you. But if you have, say, 70,000, but it's all travel, you have a travel-based audience, brands are more willing to work with you. I hope I'm answering the questions right. It's really early here. So yeah, you want a media kit. You want to have at least a list of other companies you work for. So like I said, I would start in your hometown. For example, when I was in New York, I would work with different food brands, and then I went out to Bali. Bali is one of the easiest places to get your travel career started because it's literally like LA. You know, there's so many places you could collaborate with, food to the little, what is that, the tubes you have when you're drinking. They just have so much. Even like I've collaborated with dance companies, you know, and you can make it fun. And then also right now, you know, it's COVID. So what I do before I leave, I mean, I haven't been going to many places because of COVID, but I do still have to work. I would choose the places that have the least amount of hassle because you can get stuck. I have friends who are stuck out in different countries. I've almost been stuck. If you must go out the country, I would say make sure you look up all of the travel requirements. And a lot of countries, honestly, aren't open for us. Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Thailand, Vietnam, and Bali. Oh, next year, yes, that's going to be so fun. I've been to Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Thailand, and Bali. I haven't been to Vietnam yet. I was planning on going back to some Asian countries, but I know Bali we can't go to until 2021. Dubai's open, but yeah, if you guys want to go, this year, just make sure you stay safe, especially in the next coming up months because, you know, COVID. How do you get on press trips? Trips for like marketing, you literally just go, you have to talk to the hotels in advance. Or you could go with the agency. For instance, my agency sets up different models or influencers to go on different press trips for different brands. What's the most unique request you've received from one of your clients? Honestly, since I'm so new with the travel company, I haven't gotten anything too crazy yet. People really just want to know the basics and the best locations. That's one thing I really value about the job is finding some of the best locations in the world. That's the fun part. Do you have crazy travel influencer stories? Yes, I have a lot, to be honest. Every trip is different. You really never know what to expect. I remember, it's just been, you really never know. There's been a couple of times I missed my flights in other countries and I'm by myself, or I have to stay in a different country, or lose my phone, lose my card. Like I remember one time I lost my debit card in Bali and I couldn't even pay my cab driver or for my food. It was just, you literally never know what to expect. And sometimes if you lose your card out of the country, it's hard to get another one depending on where you are. So make sure you always bring cash. Always bring cash. And also always transfer your money. Where is the first place you want to travel once restrictions are lifted? I definitely want to go to Jamaica. I mean, I know people are going right now, but they have you have to get tested in your nose and all that stuff, so I really wouldn't do that. But definitely probably Jamaica, Florence, Italy. We can't go to any of the European countries now, so definitely a couple of those, Tuscany. And I want to go to New Zealand to go to Hobbiton. You guys know where the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings is. Where's the best location you've been so far? The best location, it's so hard because they're all so different. But I think Cuba is one of my favorites, Old Havana. Just because of the people and the vibe. It's like you step into the 90s and the people are so nice and genuine. I don't like the food that much, but you know, you win and you lose. Bali is definitely one of my favorite places. The food is the best. They have the best spas. It's really beautiful. And even though it's really popular, there's so many different places there, like so many hidden treasures. Do you have any tips about exchanging money? Do you get your money before you leave the trip from your bank, or do you wait until your destination to use the ATM? It just depends on how much I plan on spending. For instance, when I go to Bali, I usually just go to one of their ATMs, take out, however much I feel like I need. And then whenever I need more money, I just go take out again because I hate having so much foreign money. And some places it's easy to get cash. Like Bali was pretty easy. When I was in Tulum, it was actually pretty hard because a lot of the banks had ran out of money. I don't know what's going on, but yeah. It might actually be best to get it from your bank just so you know you don't get played when you go out of the country. I'm actually learning something because I never thought to do that. As a young Black female influencer, do you ask yourself what it's going to be like when you get to a country? I think this question seems to apply more to Black males. Would you agree? I get this question a lot, like especially from Black women, saying, how do you feel as a Black person going to this country or this country? I honestly feel fine. I don't have any worries. I think recently with the climate, people are more so worried when they travel, but to be honest, it's not how it is in America and other countries. But I do Google how racist the country is now. That's like a new thing I do just so I can know. There's been times when I've been to like Guangzhou, which is in China, and everyone's staring and taking pictures and things like that. So if that's going to happen, I guess you definitely do want to know. But usually it's fine as long as it's safe. You know, people travel. I would just look it up to make sure it's not ridiculously racist. Yeah, and I think a lot of Black men too are worried about that more so, but these places are fine. Black people travel all the time. I don't want that to be a reason why us as Black people don't travel. Transfer it into your account. Out of your account. So you just go to the bank and ask them for the money, and they would make the transfer for you. So you don't have to go through the currency exchange and see what it is yourself. They already know what it is. And it changes so often. But if you don't know how much you're going to spend, then I would just wait till you get there. Until you get to the country. My travel agency is Luxe Travel Agency. My Instagram is Megan.Milan. Do you have YouTube? Yes, I do have a YouTube. You guys can search Megan Milan in Google. I only have one video out now, and it's the beginning of my Sri Lanka trip, which is super fun. I suggest you guys go check it out. Do you think it's a good idea as a travel influencer? I definitely think you should have a YouTube as a travel influencer. That's why I created mine. The companies love that. It also tells a story, and it gets you more of an audience. So it was so nice talking to you guys. I'm going to stay on for a few more seconds to see if you guys have any more questions. And then, yeah, I find that I generally get treated better outside the country when I travel. I agree. They have more manners. Do you have tips for female solo travel? Oh, I think my time's up, guys. Okay, so if you guys have any more questions, you guys can just go to my travel agency. I have travel guides and stuff, and it'll be out in about 2 weeks. So it was so nice talking to you guys. And thank you for tuning in. And I hope you guys have a blessed weekend.
Maybe was shoplifting when they were young, and sometimes they foolishly did some things to release those things off of their record so they're able to vote and they're able to get jobs. Looking at these things that are non-traditional things to get back to the community has been really part of what we're doing as an organization to help to rebuild. And then supplier diversity is very, very important to us. We have committed to do 10% of our overall spend over the next 5 years to increase supplier diversity with Black businesses, which is why this organization, Black Travel Movement, is really important to us, because we can leverage the members of this group to help us grow as an organization. So more to come there around the supplier piece. We feel if we can help with jobs, suppliers, and advancing talent, it will have a major impact on society, and it will help us to continue our mission and our purpose to care for people to be their best.
No, thank you for sharing that, Tyrone. And again, that you're right. It's a real opportunity with collaborating with everybody from the Black Travel Summit on what we can do. It certainly is where we buy from and partner with going forward as well. Tyrone, what I was really sort of interested in listening to you is, what are some of the examples of how Hyatt is acting on its change starts here commitments?
Very good question. And the change starts at the top. First and foremost, our CEO, Mark Hoppamazian, is the chair of our Global Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council. And I am the co-chair. And so we have individuals from each region, so about 30 individuals who are working on helping us to advance the work of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And in that role is that we, as a global organization, we think globally, but we behave regionally. The issues around the world can be very different from region to region. And as I heard Megan on the last session talk about racism outside the United States, being able to empower our leaders to understand the cultural differences and how we leverage those differences, regardless of where you are in the world, is really critical to our success. Each of our CEOs' direct reports are executive business sponsors for our diversity business resource groups. For example, our COO is Chuck Floyd, is actually the executive sponsor for our Hyatt Black colleagues. Our Pride group is chaired by our Chief Legal Officer, Margaret Egan, and she's over our Pride group. And we have our leaders that are opposite of the group deliberately and intentionally, so we create what we call mutual adaptation, that we're going together and learning from each culture. Although Chuck is not a Black male, he's a white male, he's now learning more about the Black culture and how to advocate for the Black culture. Margaret is not gay, she's actually straight, but she's advocating for the gay community. So learning more, advocating more, and building those examples of how our leaders are committed at the top. And then our DBRGs are designed and created to create an environment for programs and events and relationships, not by the minority, for the majority to have an experience otherwise they wouldn't have. Having those groups to really go through and do a deep dive on culture, on race, on gender, on orientation, that helps us understand what we call psychological safety, a place where people can come and understand other cultures without the bias, without the judgment, but look for ways to truly leverage and learn from one another so that we can gain the market share from a talent perspective, from a customer perspective, and a consumer perspective. So these things coming together is kind of the top-down, bottom-up approach that we actually use, and I think everybody has benefited a great deal. We get to see talent that we oftentimes don't see because they're maybe 2 or 3 levels removed from leadership, but that gives us great access, and we really operate as a family and a collective unit.
Thank you for sharing that, Tyrone.
Tristan, as we talk through that, I alongside the social injustice and the crisis that we're dealing with in the United States in the middle of a pandemic, and with everything that's going on in the industry, how has Hyatt responded to COVID-19?
Well, thank you for asking, Tyrone, and certainly it's affected many businesses and many people over the last few months and into this year. But really, as you had shared, Tyrone, as well, our purpose is to care for people to be their best, and that purpose and care has really helped us guide our decisions. Certainly by first and foremost by listening, to what our customers, our guests, and colleagues are telling us and understanding what they're feeling. So really at the onset of the pandemic, we created a global care and cleanliness commitment. With that, it was really to enhance the operational standards, protocols, and procedures, ultimately with the goal to make sure that our guests felt safe and do feel safe. In addition to that, we always say it's safety first and, well-being always. That's a key testament, and you shared that too as well. It was important that, we launched a council. We launched a council with medical experts. We want to listen and get scientific fact-based information. We also partnered with other travel organizations. One that I can call to is American Airlines. So that helps us and helps the audience and guests really feel safe because we're getting that 360 approach. And that really allowed us as well to be the first hotel group to really have, to have the Global Biorisk Advisory Council GBAC Star accreditation, which is really important. I think that, that's a key thing, but also when you think about it from a hotel experience standpoint, every one of our hotels now, we've created a role since the pandemic, of a hygiene and well-being leader at each hotel. Plus, as we think about what travel brings to everybody, the joy of it, the excitement, we also really wanted to be mindful and work with our colleagues around the world and listen again what people are looking for. We've really recreated that experience. And to give you a couple of examples, Tyrone, and really for the audience more so, we've got unique programming. If I name a couple of hotels at Andaz Mayakoba, where you have using the outdoor spa. Park Hyatt Moscow, they have created bespoke private in-suite dining. You and I can go and do yoga at the rooftop of Grand Hyatt Berlin, Tyrone. And also picnic baskets. Really, it's about thinking about the importance of being outdoors too, and our hotels allowing that through providing picnic baskets and going out and exploring. But also, you have to also understand technology as well. We've embraced technology through our World of Hyatt app. We can provide contactless usage through the World of Hyatt app, like check-in, check-out, ordering food and beverage through the app too. So again, it gives that peace of mind and also that safety element. What we're also being very thankful for as well is the collaboration we have with Headspace. And Headspace, it's a wonderful community. It's a wonderful app that we work with. But Headspace partnership allows our guests really to engage at our hotels through Headspace, really just focusing on those mindful moments, but also listening to what other people are doing around well-being. So we're very excited about that. And I want to remind our audience as well, if they're interested to learn more about Headspace and what we're doing, is visit our virtual Hyatt booth where they can get subscription until the end of the year. So that's some of the things that we're certainly doing, is listening as we think about what we're faced with this pandemic, Tyrone.
I like that, Tristan, and I know one of our values is having fun. So it's like we have a lot of fun with our colleagues and also with our guests doing some things that are different and cutting edge. But Tristan, it's clear that the pandemic will have a long-lasting impact on many touch points in the travel experiences. But I'm curious, what will stay the same and what will change?
Well, that's a good point. I mean, certainly what's going to change, Tyrone, is our complete focus very much on well-being. Well-being during the pandemic has been strengthened, but Hyatt has always been focused on the well-being area. We've also learned a lot from our brands like Miraval, from Headspace, and also from Exhale. So the focus on well-being will be paramount, for our colleagues, guests, customers, and the audience. That's a true focus. What we've all gone through this year, I think everybody in some way has been touched by this pandemic, sadly. But looking after yourself and the people you love and your colleagues around you is what's going to make a difference. So always listening, always really sort of just, understanding what people are wanting is going to be the key thing, and taking care collectively of one another. I wanted to just sort of pull back on some of the initiatives that you had mentioned as well, Tyrone, because that ties in a little bit about some of the things that we've encountered this year, but will remain the same going forward. And some of the initiatives, again, along with our purpose and care, is ensuring that we focus on those high-end experiences, for our guests, customers, audience. And some of those areas, that we have recently launched and may remain the same is the Work from Hyatt package that we've created as well. For example, again, rooted in listening and understanding what people need today and maybe tomorrow, we created this Work from Hyatt package. And I think we can all empathize that working from home is very different from working in an office, but also think about children. Children now, a lot of children are having to work at home virtually. So we wanted to create a platform with Work from Hyatt where, for example, Tyrone, you and I could work at a Hyatt with our children and have a different change of scenery, attached with nature. I also think the focus that we've had on private experiences for a number of years, but even more so now with the pandemic and as we go into the future, is important. So I'll give an example really for the audiences here is that the private experiences we have with our brand Miraval, and in particular a newly opened hotel with Miraval Berkshires, where you can really have an equine experience, really where you're getting in touch with nature, with professionals there that can really just, have you in a pen with a horse and truly appreciating that moment. And that also allows people to understand in some ways about the importance of being in the moment, being in the now, but really being emotionally connected with that animal and what that can do. And all of this really we are just so committed to giving people the safe environment to bring back that joy of travel, opening one's minds and connecting with people. So there are a lot of things that are going to stay the same at Tyrone.
That's great. It's so exciting to see and hear the great things that Hyatt is doing. And I've been a beneficiary of that, working from home, traveling and not being at home, but now being home with my wife and my daughter and my mother-in-law. It's kind of like, don't you have to go to work tomorrow? Is there somewhere you can go? So to be able to go to one of the hotels and to just get a change of atmosphere and pace has benefited me a great deal. So I think that those things are non-conventional things that we've seen to come out of the pandemic. If we go back to 9/11 and we saw all the changes, there was new businesses that was birthed out of 9/11. You had Uber, you had Google, you had different things. What else do you think that will change for us from a well-being perspective? I think I want to stay on well-being a little bit more and talk about how we can help people to understand change starts with us first. But then also it's a well-being. What are the things we can do to make sure that we're caring for one another, but caring for ourselves first? It's kind of hard sometimes, especially, and not to stereotype, but men have a tendency to care for everybody else. And certainly women have a tendency to care for their family and not themselves. Let's talk about that well-being piece a little bit more, Kristin, and how Hyatt can support that.
No, of course. It's thank you, Tyrone, for allowing us to certainly develop upon that. I mean, within Hyatt, we've got really sort of key areas we can ground to. And it's something called it's called feel, fuel, and function. And think about that. It's how we feel. Just think of everything we've all experienced this year and how that makes us feel. So, Tyrone, just emphasizing what you said is, we can only care for other people once we take the moment to care for ourselves. And understanding that how critical that is, and that's the key. And then the fuel piece as well is how you eat, and that's the other area. And then function, about having the people around you, having communities to function. And I think that also brings us back as well, is that one thing for me, and I'd love to ask you as well, and maybe hear from the audience what they're doing, what they've been doing that's different during this time. But for me, it's to be really sort of taking the moment to think about me and my family. The Headspace app did help in learning some things about taking time for the moment. But more importantly for me is being connected with nature. Remember, the power of us being connected with nature is so important. So one of the things I want to try and do was get my children away from the screen time, and started fishing with them, being connected with nature. That all helps. So everybody needs to think about what works for them and how that can benefit others. And really, for you, Tyrone, what have you been doing for your well-being? I'm intrigued to know as well.
Yeah. So Kristin, that's a great question. I have actually taken cooking up. I've been cooking breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and up all night looking at YouTubes and different recipes. I've been able to put it to place. I've gained, I think, COVID 25 since I've been there. So cooking has been really great in helping me to really connect in and to spend some time with myself, but also time feeding my family as well. And now I'm actually doing something carry-outs with some of my friends. So if you got to put your order in soon, Kristin.
Well, I'm mindful of time, Tyrone. So I really just want to say thank you to Anita. It's really been a joy to be part of this, and hopefully that we can be part of more of this and listen. But I want to thank the other speakers as well, who have been completely fantastic and quite inspiring for us. Anita, was there any questions?
So I wanted to ask a couple questions, and I know you had already addressed some of them, which is really awesome. But I also wanted to kind of ask these questions and then also leave it out to the chat as well. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to go ahead and pop them in the chat as well, and we'll do our best to answer them, but also bear in mind the time as well. So I wanted to ask you, what are Hyatt's plans for expanding into South America and Africa?
No, I mean, Anita, thanks, great question. And our strategic growth and growing with intent is always a key priority. So we have a lot of interesting growth plans around the world, Anita, and our development team are always looking at opportunities in Africa, South America. We've had a few recent openings in South America, and but ultimately, as Tyrone was sharing, is that our focus on caring for people to be their best. That also translates to our owners and looking at opportunities everywhere. So the commitment for growth is a key priority for us during this pandemic, but also into the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that answer. I did also want to ask, and I know that you did touch upon this quite a bit, so thank you so much. But what is your take on implicit bias in luxury travel? How is Hyatt addressing it? And how do you feel that the industry should address it in general? And that's either to Tristan or Tyrone.
So I will say that I am as a diversity practitioner with more than 30 years of experience in this space. I think that the bias training has not been as effective. And so we took a little different approach, and we actually feel that this is a leadership capability and skill that's required to really look at individuals and leverage those differences. So we actually created a course called Leading Inclusively. And it starts with understanding ourselves first. And we all have been treated differently or felt like we didn't belong at some point, starting where that was and how we actually began to develop from there. And then we talked about diversity beyond race, gender, and orientation. There's dimensions of diversity that really goes beyond some of the things that we see physically. How we inherit, we get degrees. That's another different type of difference. We marry. So the dimensions of diversity is a very broad sense, and helping us to understand that helps us to prepare for our consumers and our guests to make sure we're meeting them where they are without the bias, without the judgment, but understanding we're all human beings and we can all do so much more if we leverage the sameness that we have before looking at and acknowledging the difference, but leveraging the sameness helps us give us a skill to move forward.
Thank you so much for that answer. I hope everyone is enjoying that. And I do see a couple questions coming in. So what I'll do is I'll ask maybe one or two more questions and then leave the rest to the audience. So how does Hyatt ensure diversity and inclusion in its destination marketing content?
So we look at our content, and this is really great because, I think the more diverse you are as an organization and have diversity in all functions of the organization, you get to see that difference. And I will say there's a new brand called Caption that we rolled out, a new hotel in Hollywood, and there's a couple more coming up in the States here. But if you look at the images and the branding and all their drawing, but you can literally see the hairstyle of a woman of color or the body type of a woman of color that you oftentimes didn't see before. So we're taking a very close look at those images, and we're leveraging our diversity council and leveraging our diversity business resource groups to take a look at that collateral and making sure that that we're being inclusive. We actually have a toolkit we put together, and we actually shared it with all of our agencies on how to look for more diverse models and more diverse images, and making sure that you're integrating those into the mainstream. And I would caution that we don't over-index with this, as you sometimes we go way too far and leave out another culture. But we want to make sure we're looking at equality and equity. And there is a difference between the two. Equality says that everybody's treated the same and everybody has the same, but equity is making sure we're meeting people where they are to move them forward. So being rockets in different regions around the world, as we look at our images and how we brand, is really critical to our overall success. And it aligns with our whole purpose to care for people to be their best. If I can see myself, I'm more likely to stay there. If I can feel when I get to the hotel that I'm a sense of belonging, I'm likely to refer others to join me in that endeavor. So it's really critical to our success. As I said earlier, diversity, equity, and inclusion is the manifestation of our purpose. It's how it comes alive.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much again for that answer. Really enjoyed it. So I'm not going to ask the next question. I'm going to go ahead and take it to the audience. So Mark Prince has asked, how has Hyatt adjusted to the needs of its elite members during COVID? And you can definitely take a look in our expo as well. Hyatt is listed there, and there's a lovely video in there that shows you what they're doing as well in regards to COVID. But if you guys want to touch on it as well, then feel free to do so.
Yeah, I mean, Anita, I mean, certainly for the audience as well, is that for our members, they're intrinsically important to us, as all of our customers and guests are as well. But we've had a number of commercial offers available for our World of Hyatt members across the tiers, and again, we do share that on the virtual booth as well. But again, as we shared before, we're constantly keeping engaged with our World of Hyatt members to understand what's important for them now. But also as we're going into the future, as we know that some people's motives for travel, some people are very comfortable travel now, some want a little bit of time. So we always try to curate offers really for when people are ready to travel. So all our offers are available to be seen, and we constantly keep an eye on what's needed now, but also going forward, because we want to make sure that we have. We want to ensure that that we have everything for our guests, World of Hyatt members, so that they can plan ahead. And one important thing is ensuring we have very, very flexible cancellation terms as well, so people can really adjust and create their travels as and when is needed and when they feel ready.
Awesome.
You know, if I can build on that, Anita, I think change starts with a question. And Tristan said this earlier, we're listening. So listening to what our consumers and our guests are saying, but our colleagues will help us to move change a lot faster. Listening is critical, key.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Now, I do want to take it to the audience again a little bit more. However, we are running out of time. So I do want to thank you again for your participation. And if you want to go ahead and let people know what Hyatt is doing for the audience members today, that would be awesome. And then we can wrap up.
Yes, of course, I can do that. I mean, there'll be, certainly we're going to be offering some offers which can be seen through our virtual show, our virtual stand, I should say. We will be doing some World of Hyatt offers as well, which I know, Anita, you'll be sharing later on. But also, as I shared before, I encourage you as well, we are doing an offer for Headspace subscription from now until the end of the year, which will be a 30-day trial. Really do encourage you to do it. It's a great tool to use and hopefully connect with various other well-being options through Headspace. So lots to come. And Anita, I just want to take this opportunity really to thank you, the audience, and all the other speakers as well, because both Tyrone and I are very keen to continue this conversation and partner as we move forward. So thank you.
Thank you. And anyone else, anyone who didn't have their questions answered, feel free to reach out via the expo booth. You'll be directed to their website in addition to their email address as well, and you can ask further questions. If anything else as well, feel free to reach out to us at Black Travel Summit or via the chat box to let us know that you're interested in learning more, and then we'll go ahead and share that information with you as well. But in the meantime, thank you again so much, Tristan and Tyrone, for your time. It was a pleasure to see you again. It's always a pleasure to see you. And we'll continue this conversation shortly. Thank you and take care. Bye-bye.
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 Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today. My name is Claire, and I am the founder and CEO of Up in the Air Life. And my session today is Be Your Own Boss, How to Start a Travel Business. So I want to say hello to you guys. Please let me know where you're from in the chat. Take a note of where you guys are from. So my presentation today is how to start a travel business, how to be your own boss. When I thought about how to explain this, what I really want to do is compare this to if you were trying out for a sports league. So how that would work. So who in here remembers when they were trying out for like the basketball team or the football team, like what that looked like? So you do. So tell me in the chat what teams that you have applied, that you've tried out for, and we're going to get to it. So first, when you first are trying out for a team, you need to watch the game. So when you're starting a travel business, you first need to understand what types of different travel companies are out there. So the first type of travel company I want to talk about is the traditional travel agent. Traditional travel agents, they fall underneath travel agencies. So you would then join a travel agency, receive training, and be underneath that travel agency as an agent. Traditional agents, they take calls from people, they meet with people, they don't charge things traditionally, and they will book travel and get paid a commission from a hotel or from different vendors that provide like vacation packages and things like that. Then we also have travel advisors. And I think a lot of times in the industry, travel advisors and agents kind of see themselves as different. A travel advisor is typically, I see them a lot in the luxury space like myself, and a travel advisor will charge you a set fee to actually put together the trip for you. I know in the luxury market that I'm in, when we plan this, there's different networks that agents can belong to that give them access to different properties, villas, private jets, and all those things. So your first type of travel company is a travel agent or travel advisor. The second one is a group tour operator. So I'm the founder of Up in the Air Life, and we are a luxury group tour operator primarily. What that means is, as a luxury group tour operator, we actually plan trips in a package. So we work directly with hotel vendors. We also work on the airline side and the activity side to basically put together a complete package for the destination. So for instance, when clients come with us to Accra, we pick the hotel, we pick all the restaurants, all the tours, and our clients pay one set price. That's a group tour operator. The second type is a destination. The third type is a destination management company. So a destination management company is if, let's say, you were interested in moving to, if you lived in Florida, let's say, and you were in the Miami area and you became an expert on everything in Miami. So you developed your own relationships with transportation providers, hotels. What would happen is that as a destination management company, you would be an expert that other agents would contact you to help put together their trip for Miami. Or if you were moving to a foreign country, you also could maybe work on getting a business visa. And in that country, you could actually create a destination management company. And again, the destination management company, the difference is they actually have an office in that destination. So we watch the game. The next thing we need to do is we need to pick your position. So picking your position in the travel industry means you should look at niching down. What does that mean? Look at, are you going to specialize in luxury? You're going to specialize in budget, wine, food and wine trips, culinary trips. There's so many different types of trips, ski vacations, people over 50. Figure out who your market's going to be. Are you marketing to women? Are you marketing to men? Is there a specific age range? A new thing is affinity travel. So with a lot of Black travel groups, that's considered affinity travel, where we're marketing to certain people based on those demographics of who they are. So you'll need to make sure you pick your position. The next thing is we're going to go to training camp. So when you talk about getting your training in the travel space, what you do need to do is you need to register your business. You need to also get licensing. Depending on where your clients are from, there are different travel licenses you will need, like for Florida and California, if you're selling travel. And the last thing is you'll also need to get insurance. Now, depending on what type of company you create, that will depend on the type of registration and licensing that you'll need. If you chose option one to be a travel agent, then you would most likely be under a travel agency that already exists, meaning you would use their information to book travel, like an IATA number, which is basically a number that is shared with like Hyatt.com. So if you make a reservation for your client on Hyatt.com, you would know and enter that IATA number so your company would get that commission. So as an agent, there's certain types of insurance that you're going to need. And then if you're a group tour operator like myself, there's another set of liability insurance that you're going to need. So make sure that you do everything you need in training camp to make sure you check the boxes on everything. The next thing you're going to need to do is get on a team. So you already know what you're going to do. You know what kind of business you're going to have, your license. Now you need to get on a team. So is that team going to be a business coach, or maybe you're joining a travel agent community? But either way, you're going to most likely need some direction on how to run your business. Now, obviously, you can go to YouTube, you can read lots of books, and you can go for it. But my recommendation, what I did, is to definitely get a business coach, because as you're building out your specific business, if you haven't learned general business skills, you're going to need help with email marketing, with setting up your website. You're going to need help with clarifying your offer or who you're talking to. So making sure you're getting on a team means you are surrounding yourself with other people that are trying to accomplish the same goal, and or getting a coach, which is basically like a business coach or advisor that can actually help you go through the different steps of creating your travel business. Next step, you need to study your opponent. Competitor analysis is huge. What that means is that once you decide, like for me, I'm a luxury tour company and we market predominantly to Black women and men who like to travel that are between the ages of 30 and 55. That's our predominant audience. Now you need to go find out who else is doing this and what are they doing. Understand all your competitors, understand what they offer, understand what makes them unique, and also understand for each competitor, what are they known for? And then what makes you different. So in competitor analysis, once you finish that stage, you're really going to have a good understanding of what the market looks like. Now, I will say a lot of times people will tell you, well, you don't need to create this company because it already exists. That's not true. There's more than enough opportunity for everyone, right? But you do need to understand what your competitors are doing, what you think they're doing well, and how you can actually be different. So when you're marketing, you're speaking the language that's going to connect with your client. The next thing you need to do is now you're going to have to create your playbook. So once you know what you're going to do, what is out there, you're creating your playbook. Your playbook is essentially your offer. You need to figure out what exactly are you offering your clients. For instance, as a travel advisor, I can help my clients book unique vacations. So if you want to book a private jet to bring your girlfriend over to Miami for the weekend and you want to stay at a luxury villa, I'm your girl. I can help you. I can connect with different inventory, very unique activities by these different vendors that most people don't have access to. And then also because I'm in affiliate through the Virtuoso network, and that's basically like a network of luxury travel agents, I have access to hotel perks like early check-in, guaranteed arrival, guaranteed room upgrades. And so as you figure out what you're offering, you're going to have to figure out what partnerships and connections you need to make. If you're moving into the group travel space and you're trying to figure out your offering, you're essentially most likely going to package your trips together. So that means you need to probably go to the destination. I say probably because there are companies that don't go to the destination, which is kind of weird to me. But if you're not going to go to the destination, you really need to have strong relationships with the vendors on the ground. For me, my recommendation is if you're offering trips in different destinations, to go there on a site visit, work with the vendors, make partnerships so you can experience all the tours, all the restaurants that you are actually sharing with your clients for that journey that they're going on, right? So when you get your offer together, because you know what your competitors are doing, that offer should provide unique value. And so what you need to think about is as you're going through your competitors, you really need to understand what is missing from their offering. What are they not doing? Or what else could you be offering that no one's even thinking about or that you can be better at? So think about those two core things to make sure your offer is unique. And then the next thing you need to do is that you also need to have a marketing plan as you're creating your playbook. When you think about the travel space, some of the obvious platforms you want to be on is you definitely want to have a website and then also Instagram. One of the books I recommend you read the book Story Brand. Story Brand by Donald Miller is a really great book that talks about how to brand your website and make your messaging so that it relates to your audience. For instance, years ago when people would put stuff on websites, they would say like, our business was founded in 2013 and we do this, we do this, we do that, right? Now you'll see the branding is a lot more simplistic. Think Apple, their motto was think different. Our motto at Up in the Air Life, we transitioned to we plan, you travel. Why? Most of your clients are going to go to your website. They're going to go on their cell phones. And trust me, they're scrolling through. They're not reading all this text. So you got less than 10 seconds when someone's scrolling to convey exactly what you do. So for instance, if I created a travel company for seniors, I would, be able to summarize something short to say like, this is like trips that you are not necessarily active or whatever the highlights are going to be. If I'm targeting those people, maybe they like to do cruising. So it would say cruising in your golden years, something that someone reads it and they clearly know like, oh, that's me. That makes complete sense. So make sure you set up your marketing. So you've got your website set up. You're using story branding. You also should have an Instagram. On Instagram, you definitely want to feature places you're going to. I know a lot of companies just want to feature a lot of cool pictures, but you need to have a strategy when it comes to Instagram. That means you should have some sort of graphics, video on the destination. You should have captions, and you should be using hashtags. You want to make sure that someone who is thinking about going to this destination can find you. So you need to do a little bit of studying and training on Instagram to make sure your content is resonating and the messaging and the hashtags are then attracting people to your site. And then on your Instagram page, on your bio, definitely want to make sure it's clear. What do? I help people in their golden years experience cruising so that they don't have to be wore out on their vacation. Whatever it is, make it simple so I can understand. And when someone clicks on the bio link in your website, it should map them to a logical flow. Maybe it maps them to a flow to capture their email, and then you're following up with a message, whether it's in video or it's in text, but you really need to sit down and look at your funnel. So what's a funnel? A funnel is essentially the different stages that you're going to take your client through to get them to buy from you. So if you think about when someone goes to your website, most websites that you go to, when you go there, there's a pop-up to capture their email, right? So if you get their email, once you get their email, what is that first message going to say back, right? I know it Up in the Air Life, as we've been upgrading our stuff to make them more aligned with story branding. When you get that confirmation from us, once you give us your email, you're going to get a video where I'm going to tell you about what we do. I'm also going to give you links for anything you need to download. And then we're going to follow up with you a week later to invite you to join us for a phone call. So you need to think about, what are the core milestones if you were walking a stranger to work with you? It's always going to be sign up to the newsletter, send them a welcome email. That welcome email, be creative. Like, I got a welcome email from my marketing group that I'm in, and the email had a GIF of a Black girl, like, yes, girl, like, we're here. Think about your audience. How do you talk to them? Years ago, marketing was very like stiff. And now, like, if you know who your client is, you may want to say, hey, girl, hey, like, I'm so happy you're here. Click on this link here. I'm going to hook you up. I'm going to give you the deets. It doesn't have to be proper English. You want to connect so your client is reading this and they're like, yeah, this is my people. These are my people. Okay. Next thing you want to do, we've talked about Instagram, Facebook. The other thing is you need to decide what other platforms you're going to be on. You could be on Twitter. You can be on Pinterest. You could be on YouTube. I'm going to tell you this. Pick two. Start with two platforms that you are comfortable with until you can outsource and hire someone else to do other content. Now, obviously, YouTube is a great area of monetization because you can get lots of views. You can start to make money seamlessly and passively. However, the equipment you have to buy, the hashtag and the SEO work to actually get known when people are searching, there's a little work on that. So that may not be a good starting point. At minimum, if you're starting a travel company, you need to be able to have a website. You need to have a way for people to take your money. So number one way that I suggest you process your payments is PayPal. Haha. A lot of people talk mad smack about PayPal, but what they don't realize is PayPal has a working capital program. There is no other, I believe Stripe may be coming out with it or they're in the early stages, but PayPal has had a working capital program for quite some time. What does that mean? It means that when you start processing your payments on PayPal, they will take a small percentage. It's usually around 2.9. However, once you start processing at a higher volume, you can get that lowered. A lot of people don't know this, okay? So once you start processing on PayPal, what they'll do in their working capital program is there's no loan application. Let's say that you process $100,000. Then the next year or so, you can apply for a working capital loan and they'll give you 20% of what you've processed. You can then use that money to reinvest in your business. Reinvest in your business with ads, reinvest in your business with better brochures, consultants, training, coaching for you to be a CEO. By the way, if you're not investing in yourself, you are missing out. You are your strongest asset to your business. And if you're not making yourself better, if you're not getting enough rest, you are going to be useless and you're going to see your business suffer. So back to PayPal. So you can borrow 20% through their working capital program. And that is why I recommend highly to deal with PayPal. If you try to get into a traditional loan, it's almost impossible. I hate to say that. I'm a very positive person, but it's very difficult to get a loan for your business for most small business owners. So make sure that you do use PayPal, and you can borrow money from PayPal. And I think it's amazing. We've borrowed hundreds of thousands from PayPal and paid all of it back. We've used that money to do investments in ads. So when we do a campaign, we're literally pumping more than $100 a day in Facebook ads. So huge way to grow. So as I wrap this up, the last thing you want to do is make sure that you show up for game day. When you show up for game day, you're going to make sure you have proper execution. And the way that you're going to do that is make sure you have an amazing customer experience plan for your clients. And that's it for this session on how to create a travel brand. If you guys have any question, feel free to type it in the chat, but I'm going to take it home, and that's it.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kristin Quaye, and
my name is Quaye.
And we're the founders of Certified Africa.
All right. So basically, Certified Africa is a travel and lifestyle company that helps, the diaspora make that transition from America, the UK, wherever you find yourself, back to the African continent.
Yes. And today we're going to talk about investing in Africa and making your way back home and relocating.
So we'll touch on you investing in the motherland. At the same time, we're going to talk about briefly how you could, make that transition back. Now, I'm a Ghanaian born and raised in Ghana. My wife is, of course, African-American. So we have both backgrounds from the diaspora and then, of course, the African continent. Now, when we're talking about investing in Africa, we have a fair, idea of how to go about that and how that can be done. Because we do business both in America and also we do business in Africa. So I believe we're kind of qualified to talk about that. And we also kind of help people make that transition from America to Africa. So
or
Ghana,
wherever they may be in the diaspora, the UK, the Caribbean, all of that.
To Ghana specifically for now, until in the future we may expand to other parts of the continent. Now, when we talk about investing in Africa, one will ask, why Africa? Of course, I missed all the numerous places that we have in the world. Why should we think about Africa? We'll give you just two reasons why Africa. The first part is because Africa is the second largest continent with about 1.2 billion people. Think about that. It means you have enough people to buy whatever you are selling.
The second reason is that Africa is a developing continent. And what that really means is that it has loads of opportunity for you to invest in, for you to impact the continent in a positive way, and for you to reap returns as well.
Now, in terms of investing in Africa, there are different levels that you want to look at. You want to look at small scale, medium scale, and large scale. Of course, for some people who have access to huge, donor funds or huge funds that you've saved up from whichever source, that you can go into very huge projects. Because don't forget, Africa has a lot of, problems, I should say, which is an advantage in that respect. Like she said, that you can decide to come and solve any of those problems in order to generate funds for yourself and help the continent. So large scale, you can do that. There are numerous sectors you can do that. Now, medium scale, if you don't have too much money, but you have some money to build something, that's a place you can enter. And then small scale, you start from there and grow. There are a lot of sectors that we can look at when we talk about investing in Africa. Agriculture, real estate, infrastructure, education and training, tourism, consulting, healthcare solutions, telecommunications. The list is endless, okay? However, we're going to touch on few investment opportunities, out of these sectors that we've touched on, that you can decide to focus on. Mm-hmm. Now, the first part that I'll talk about is you finding a startup that you believe in and funding that startup. Because when we talk about investing in Africa, not everybody wants to get on ground and personally, initiate something. You want to find, there are a lot of talents in Africa. I'm telling you, so much talent. People are doing a lot of amazing work. Some of them just need a push for them to move to the next level. So what I'm suggesting is that you go to the continent, you need to go. You don't have to sit in America or in the UK, wherever, and think you can just want to invest in Africa. It's a bad idea. You want to go down there, talk to people, find people who are doing things that you believe in, put your money in it. And then at the same time, the second biggest, investment avenue, I believe, is your own skill set. What are you good at? What can you do? What are you best at? What are you passionate about? You can go to the continent, find situations that you can match up your skill sets to, and then jump on, right? There's no perfect time. You just have to initiate. So that's the first step that you want to look at when it comes to investment. Other people doing things, you jumping on. You yourself, what are you good at? Getting on ground and then executing that.
So the next sector that we'll talk about is agriculture. And you're probably wondering why we would mention agriculture, but agriculture is a key area that you can make investment in. When we think about what has just happened with the pandemic, we realize that, amidst all of the sectors that have been truly hit hard, we as people still have to eat. And when you think about Africa as being a place with billions of people, those people also have to eat, as well as the world. And so if you are in the sector of agriculture, it's a huge opportunity for investment. And there's two types of agriculture, of course, that you can get involved with. There is crop, there's animal farming, and people are not thinking about what happens after we, what happens in the production process. After we make these crops, what else can we do with them? There's so many different things that you can do with these crops, as well as making them into juice. You might take their byproducts and really create value out of them.
And by the way, we're involved with agriculture as well, both animal farming and crop farming in Ghana. So you want to jump on the train. Don't think about the sector as, I don't like agric. No, find people who love agric and jump on. People are willing in Africa that needs that cash, just a little bit, put it in and then grow from there. And she talks about, manufacturing in that respect, changing those raw materials into finished products. That's a huge sector for guys who have a lot more money. You can dive into that. The second piece that I'll touch on, for anybody who wants to invest in Africa, I say you can also bring Africa to you. That is importing African products. People underestimate this field. They look at it as, oh, okay, I don't like selling. But here's the thing. The US and Ghana and West Africa, I should say, have an initiative called the AGOA initiative. It helps you to ship things duty-free to America, things that you're coming to sell to America. Now, that's a huge advantage, and people are already utilizing it. When you look at a lot of the products that people sell in America, for instance, black soap, shea butter, jewelries, outfits. Now, most of these things cost, $1, $2, $4, $5. Let me give you a typical example. You can buy a product for $3 in Africa. That's a reality in Ghana. Now, you can do box shipping. So $2 off each product. That's $5 to get that product across. And we do that. So I know what I'm talking about. If you sell that product for $20, if you go on Amazon, some are even selling these products for $25. I'm not going to mention specific products. For $25, you get $15 profit. Think about it. If you sell 500 pieces for even the entire year, that's $75,000 that you make. How many people make that type of money averagely in a year? But it's just from selling these products. So you don't underestimate that. Importing things to America and then selling them wherever you find yourself. That's a huge way of investing in the continent. But this time you're bringing the continent to you wherever you find yourself. And people have been doing it. You can see it all over the internet, and you can also jump on board as well.
The next sector that we want to talk about is tourism. It's huge right now. So many more people are deciding to come to the motherland, connect with their roots, and they're going to need several different services. Number one, they'll need places to stay. So you can think about forming an Airbnb. And, this is not in the currency of, the local African country. This would be in dollars or pounds or whatever you might, interact with whatever currency you might use. People are willing to pay these amounts of money to come and rent and have a comfortable place to stay. In addition, you want to look at the fact that a lot of these places in African countries, the tourism destinations have many hours between them. And there's not a lot of times rest stops and, places that they can stop for snacks and clean restrooms and all of that. So that is a major opportunity for someone to come in, purchase real estate, and build something such as a rest stop in between these tourist destinations. You might also want to look at services such as health and wellness services for people who are moving back to the diaspora, so yoga, different foods, restaurants. You want to think about possibly forming a food truck, a restaurant, any type of thing. We have a friend, Deja Gordon, who recently moved to Ghana. She started a Jamaican food jerk truck. And it's doing amazing. So these are all, practical examples.
Let me give you a typical example. The first time my wife came to Ghana, in 2016, I believe. Now, the place that she stayed, after her study abroad program was over. Now, the lady who owned that place lives in New York. Now, she paid her monies in dollars to this lady in New York, and there's a caretaker in Ghana who is taking care of the place. So you can imagine, she came down, built whatever she wanted to build. She happened to go there for study abroad. She decided to stay there. So that's how you can, in the same tourism industry, you can have these accommodations that you're going to make a lot of money out of, and you're going to meet a lot of need. Don't forget. Now, like we said from the beginning, Africa has a lot of need that you want to jump in. Don't look at it as a problem. Okay, it's a need that you can jump in. It's an opportunity for the diaspora. Trust me, other people are doing it. So you want to jump on it as well and make that happen. The last piece that I'll talk about is education and training. Now, the education sector is also a huge sector. I talk about this because, a lot of the education that we see in Africa is soft skills. People train people for soft skills, but I believe people can get involved with technical skills. That if you're good in IT, and people have done this again, but again, in Africa, one of the key things is less competition for you. In America, if you try to build any training type of thing, the competition is so huge. Now, so we have some guys called Gebeya. Now, these guys came from America. They went to Africa, scouts the place, country to country. They felt they could build a training school in, Ethiopia for training people in IT. Now, these guys have built $1 million company, I'm telling you, in Africa. These are young people. So you can also do same. Come to the continent, find a skill set that you can actually render. You don't have to build a whole huge school. Find a space that you can train people. And with time, you expand. So that's a huge sector. Anywhere you qualify, whether it's engineering, whether it is IT, whatever it is. Also, this time around, you have a lot of diasporans moving to the continent. And these guys want their children to go to school. And they want their children to have some type of international school, touch. So what you can also do is to build like a Montessori school. We don't have too many on the continent. People are still building, but you can also jump in, find partners. That's the key. When it comes to investing in Africa, don't always try to do it on your own. You can always get other people to do that. So these are some of the few investment opportunities that we can talk about. Again, they are endless. They are endless. Like the sectors I mentioned, there are several that you cannot even begin to imagine yet. Now we'll touch on a few steps that you can take when you decide to invest in Africa. Few so that we have tried it ourselves. We're involved in a few sectors: real estate, agriculture, and then also in the tourism sector as well, and transportation. We do that as well in Ghana. So it's endless. Here's how you can start that process.
So number one, if you haven't, you want to definitely first research and then visit the country of interest that you have and decide if it's a place that you really want to do business in and that you think is viable. So, find a way to get there. And, when you go, don't always just look from a perspective of culture. You want to enjoy the culture and all of that, but you want to look through a business lens as well.
All right. So as we wrap up, you need to decide on whether or not what type of thing you want to do, whether you want to take a new business, send an existing business, or better still, look for something on ground and then get involved with. Find reputable institutions, qualified individuals to conduct some type of market research for you. Find local partners, people you can interact with. There are a lot of chamber of commerce that you can think about, which are stakeholders. Find these people, talk to them. It's very key. Then, of course, you can think about registration and permits. And don't always come in trying to do anything big. Start from somewhere. Authenticate your idea. Find out if it's going to work before you jump into any huge thing. Okay, so these are some of the key things. Now, the last thing I'll talk about is getting help. Don't think about doing these things on your own. Find professional help to do that. Now, if you have any questions, you can put it in the comment chat. We'll answer one or two, and then you can always reach out to us. One of the things that we do, based on our personal experience, we're a young couple who are doing business, both here and in Ghana. We've been doing that for some time now. Now, if you want to do business on the African continent, Ghana specifically, and of course, any of the West African countries, you can reach out to us. Our email is certifiedafrica@gmail.com. We can help you, with that as well.
Additionally, if you would like to move or relocate to Ghana, we can also assist you. And we have a program where we are helping people from the diaspora move through the entire process from beginning to end, permits, registration, all of that. And we also help them start a business that will help them bring income flow once they move to the continent. So reach out to us.
Now, one of the key things that comes with our travel experiences is that we don't just do people going to have fun and enjoy themselves, which is great. We like to travel, with a lens of entrepreneurship. So on every trip that we have, there's a business element in there because we believe in investing seriously, especially in the African continent. So on our travel experiences, aside you having fun, that's great. but we always have the business aspect throughout our entire trips. So you want to jump on any of our experiences, and trust me, you're going to come up with a great idea. You want to go back to Africa as well. Now, Africa is a great place that you can do business in. If you've not thought about it before now, I'm encouraging you. Like, if you start now, that's the best time for you. Don't wait until it's too late. Like I said, we're a young couple. You can also do same. It doesn't matter what level you are, but it's great to start from somewhere. Years down the line, the Africa we want, according to the African Union, by 2063 and 2030, Africa is going to be at a place where you want to be involved. So you want to jump on now, start from somewhere, and then scale up in that respect. Thank you so much for having us. We have just a short time. We believe this can be impactful. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us again at certifiedafrica@gmail.com, or you can visit our website and still get back to us, www.certifiedafrica.com, or our Instagram and Facebook at Certified Africa.
Thank you.
So welcome everyone, my name is Anela and I'm a food blogger and an avid traveler. I have a blog called Feed the Malik, if you don't know who I am. And a little about me before we jump into this foodie breakout. I decided to put together a snack that's inspired by my travels. So yes, I'm based in Washington, DC, and I really focus on the local food scene right now, particularly because of COVID-19. But in the past, I've lived abroad, studied abroad, worked abroad, and my husband and I have spent a considerable amount of time living outside of the United States as well. So we try to, here and now, when we can't travel, kind of bring some of those influences into our kitchen, because we can't take the trips that we would like to or host the dinner parties that we would like to. And food for me right now is like really an escape. So in 15, 20 minutes in a breakout, I did not think that it was realistic to cook. So I'm going to show you what I did. I went to Whole Foods and I thought about where would I want to go right now if I could. Well, for me, that would be back to the Middle East. I lived in the Middle East in multiple countries, I think total about 3.5 years. And so for me, the food is very near and dear to my heart. I think it's delicious food. And I wanted to create this like ultimate snack tray that you could recreate at home and could maybe bring a little bit of that like travel adventure spirit into your kitchen. So it's really, really simple. I thought about all my favorite Middle Eastern flavors, and so I had to go with dates. Let me see if you can see these. These are like ultra, ultra ripe dates. So they're super sticky, and you can get any kind of dates at the store. It doesn't matter if they're pitted, it doesn't matter where they're from. It really doesn't matter. I prefer the ones that are smaller and they're a little bit overripe and they're really sticky. My husband prefers ones that are a little underripe and they tend to be larger and a little more fibrous. And so one of our favorite snacks is to take them, and this is a pretty traditional snack in the Middle East actually, and drizzle them with tahini. Tahini is just a paste made from ground up sesame seeds, but you can also try this with peanut butter, sunflower seed butter, almond butter is another good one. It's really up to you. I prefer tahini. I think the balance between them is really, really lovely. And if you've traveled in the Middle East, then you've noticed that tahini and dates are two common flavors that are served together very often. So put them on a plate. I never pit them, but you can if you want to. And really just like drizzle generously, very generously. And for some reason, even though this is the like easiest snack treat that I make, when I used to do this for dinner parties back in the day, this was somehow always the thing on the spread that was the most impressive, which I think is hilarious because it's so simple. Drizzle generously. And then my trick is that I always add some flaky salt, just a little bit. I think it really like amps up the sweetness. If you think about chocolate chip cookies that have flaky salt on top, then that's really where the inspiration comes from. So dates, tahini, and flaky salt, that's going to be the anchor for our snack tray. And then I just went to Whole Foods so that you can find these ingredients yourselves. I tried to think about all of the flavors that are really common in the region. So dates, olives, figs, apricots, pistachios, chickpeas, things like that, and just kind of meander the aisles. And so we do this we do this pretty frequently at home where we're like, let's have a movie night and get all the snacks we can think of inspired by X cuisine. So let's see. I found crispy fava beans. These are just like almost like little bits of popcorn. They're great. Had to get some Turkish apricots. Dried fruit and nuts are also super common, and something that like if you went to someone's home in the region, they would definitely serve you. Normally, if I'm doing this for a dinner party, I would have a huge spread and I would wear gloves, but it's COVID and just me, so I'm going with my bare hands tonight. And then looking at the chat, somebody said kanafa. So Jose, I hope I'm saying your name right, Jose. I love kanafa, and if you know about kanafa, it is incredible, but there is absolutely no way I could try to make kanafa, which is a traditional Palestinian dessert. No way I could make that in a 20-minute breakout session. And the trays that you make kanafa in are like this big. So there is one place here in DC that makes pretty decent kanafa. It's a fine dining like Levantine restaurant, but it's one of their desserts that we definitely appreciate when we're out and about. I also grabbed honey roasted pistachios, which the Wonderful brand actually remind me of like milkshakes and cheesecakes that I used to have when I lived in the Middle East, because pistachio and honey are really common combinations. And so I tried these. They're really sweet and the honey flavor is really strong. And it brought me like right back to like meandering and getting way too much sugar and just kind of exploring, which I really miss. So in the chat, we have, I love taking people around the world through food. I do. Yep. I really think that food is a way to kind of like bring people together and to have a really like open and nice kind of cross-cultural exchange, not to be cliche, but because it's really difficult, I think, to be guarded and angry like over food. Once people start eating, I feel like the walls kind of come down. And in my experience, having been abroad, it was always over food that I was able to make those connections with people. So Tanya Fitzpatrick asked, what restaurant in DC? So you're in Silver Spring. Awesome. So if you're in Silver Spring, there is a restaurant called Albi in Navy Yard. So it's spelled A-L-B-I, which actually means my heart or my love in Arabic. It's something I call my husband, actually. So we go there frequently. It is fine dining Lebanese. They have outdoor seating, and they typically have like a kanafa dessert that is fabulous. All of the food there is amazing. And Tanya, if you're in Silver Spring, then I'll plug myself. Definitely follow me on Instagram at feedthemalik or feedthemalik.com. I try to represent the entire DMV and do, at least I think, a good job of covering places that maybe you won't find anywhere else, but that are fabulous and where you'll get like really, really great dining experiences. So moving on, I had to get, my husband laughed at me for buying these. These are crispy chickpea snacks, chickpeas, hummus, like tons of foods in the region made with chickpeas. But my husband laughed because he's like, you know, you could make those in 5 minutes. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm trying to, you know, create this like curated snack experience, you know, for this session. And I can't like bake and assemble and talk at the same time. I'm not that skilled yet. And then I grabbed these, which I love. If you haven't tried these, the Raincoat crisps, they have a bunch of like internationally inspired flavors, and Raincoat crisps, sorry. So the fig and olive I snagged because I thought like what more Arab inspired than fig and olive, especially if you get a little bit of cheese to go with it. They're perfect. I get them all the time and they're really, really good. Awesome. World Footprint. Okay, I will look you up after the session. Oh, great. We have some DMV people in here. So Nita, okay, you're in Reston. Awesome. I'm actually, okay, so I used to live in Virginia, and I feel like there's a lot of diversity in the food scene in Virginia because there's such large immigrant populations. And I haven't made it back to Virginia to explore since I moved to DC maybe 6 months ago. So my husband and I next weekend are planning on doing a whole day of driving around Northern Virginia and eating food. We want to stop at a Yemeni place we love. We want to go to an Afghan restaurant that we used to visit a lot. There's also one of my favorite ramen places in the world there. And so I think like, don't sleep on Northern Virginia. I know DC gets all the love, but that is really like a really narrow view of the scene in the region. So I'm right on time. See, I have 5 minutes left in my session. I will tilt the camera. This is so hard while being in the kitchen, but this is what I would do typically if we were going to have a movie night. We would get some dried fruit and nuts. We would snag some things that remind us of some place we miss. And then always, always, always with the dates and tahini, or sometimes I use sunflower seed butter because I don't eat that many nuts. I don't have an allergy, but sometimes they don't agree with me. So don't forget the sea salt. And I would say my like foodie tip of the day would be if you're making anything sweet, cookies, something like dates and tahini. If you're just, like assembling a tray with some jam and crackers, et cetera, and you have sweet flavors, put out a little bit of flaky salt that folks can use for themselves. It really enhances sweet flavors. And I think people underestimate how you can play with like, especially sweet, salty and spicy. So also like fresh pepper goes on big jam, for example, and is amazing. But I think a lot of people don't think to look at their spice cabinet when they're making these little like sweet arrangements. And also I see that my IG is pinned in the chat, but actually that is the wrong web address. So I will type in the chat the web address for if you wanted to check out my work. There, it's in the chat. You can check out my work there. I cover diverse voices in food. I make an effort to highlight places that you won't find anywhere else. And once COVID is over, you'll see me traveling frequently and also sharing about my travels through food. I think food brings us together and it has this unique power and we shouldn't underestimate it. So I don't want to go over time. That was super quick. Ooh, someone said they use dates in their loose leaf tea blends. I love that. I actually use a lot of date syrups to sweeten. I like black tea with milk, so I use date syrup usually. And I use date syrup to sweeten things when I'm baking. So that makes total sense. They have like a really nice, lovely flavor. It's different than sugar. It's a little bit more, I don't know how to describe it, like mellower. It's almost like honey. Honey has a similar flavor. But you can catch me online, Feed the Malik on all the platforms, feedthemalik.com. If you're looking for good food and diverse perspectives in food, then I'm your girl. Oh, one question right before we go. My favorite Middle Eastern dish, this is really controversial because my husband is Arab American. And so having lived in the region together, we have very strong food opinions. I would say my favorite Middle Eastern dish is called matluba or maqluba, if you're like spelling it out correctly. It is a Palestinian rice dish where the meat is, you typically layer the bottom of the pot with like sliced vegetables. It's like cauliflower, some people do tomatoes sliced, and then chicken that's been fried before you put it in. You layer it with tons of spices and rice and you cook it that way. But when you serve it, and it's usually this big pot, they flip it over and it's this like big production, the flipping. And when they take the pot off, if you did it right, the dish holds its shape and it's like the most flavorful, fragrant rice, chicken, it's like, it's hearty, it sticks to your ribs, but it tastes so amazing. And I actually spent 6 months in Jordan teaching myself how to make a matluba that kept its shape. It was like one of my proudest moments while I was there. And that's another thing I always do when I travel is try to learn how to cook one of the local dishes and try to like take a cooking class. It's a great way to connect with people and learn more about the local culture. All right, well, thank you. Take care, folks.
Hi guys, so we're here with Quaye Hunnigan. He is the founder and lead creative at Win Collective. You should go ahead and check him out on Win Collective on Instagram and also Alive Like the Wind as well. So how are you doing, Clay? Thank you for joining us today.
It's so good. Thanks for having me. How's things on your end? The podcast is looking, it's been amazing today.
Thank you. That's all because of the speakers that we've had. Everyone's been great, and we've been enjoying ourselves as well, but also running around like headless chickens, as you always do when you're doing events. But I'm glad that everyone is enjoying it as well. All right, awesome. So I want you to, I guess, first of all, kind of introduce who you are, what you do, and of course I introduce who you are, but what you're doing, what the Win Collective is, and you know, as a lead creative, what your main role is as well.
Sure. So my name is Quaye Hunnigan. I founded the Win Collective 3 years ago with actually my sister and a friend. And at the time, it was a travel community. Halfway through that journey, we realized that there was more space to rally and value this creative community as a digital advertising community as well. And so we started pitching to brands accordingly. And now we are half travel community, and the other half of our revenue and income comes in from working with brands to tell better stories, to tell more diverse stories. Some of our clients obviously include like Panasonic and Corona, the beer brand, and MasterCard. And so that's been an interesting journey, but my role within the collective now, especially on the creative agency, is a director and producer. I work a lot on the brand partnership side of things. And yeah.
Okay, awesome. So, do you mind telling us a bit, because I know you mentioned some big name brands there, like Corona, MasterCard, etc. How do you go about pitching yourself or making yourself visible to those brands?
So I think definitely, one of the things that I tend to do a lot of is actually working on decks and really showing like your value proposition and like what it is exactly you bring in that value, what do you bring to the table to the conversation. That's maybe like a different angle to what you've seen before. I think we're already a step ahead with that as people, everyone in this, I guess the majority of people here are either Black or from like a POC background. And so I think that already gives you a step ahead in terms of leading the conversation from the angle of, hey, I have something new to add to the conversation. I think that's the initial thing. And then of course, like you want to be able to bring your best to the table through like decks and just really knowing why, like the why or why you should work with this brand, So that's a good way, I would say.
Now, I want you guys to also feel free to engage and ask any questions as well, especially after you've gone ahead and checked out their IG page. And, they have a ton of awesome campaigns and they're working on a ton of projects as well. So, Clay, do you mind sharing some of the projects that you're working on with the audience?
Yeah, sure. So we just shot Panasonic campaign in Paris. I flew from Paris to Mexico yesterday. The reason I'm here is actually in a few weeks we're also shooting another major campaign for an alcohol brand in Guatemala. They're a global alcohol brand. I can't say who just yet, but we are shooting that in Guatemala in like 2 weeks, which is super, super exciting. And we work a lot with alcohol brands, with tech brands, adventure brands. So people like Malik Swiss in Europe and stuff like that. So this is kind of like this season of like really, I think it's Q4 as well. So we're just like working with a lot of brands to kind of like bring diversity to the forefront.
Awesome. And I don't know if you mentioned where you are. Let everyone know where you are at the moment.
I'm currently in Mexico City. I flew to Mexico last night, so if anyone's here or has any tips from Mexico City, please reach out on Instagram. Send them over this year.
Awesome. So can you tell us about some of the things that maybe you've been able to access as a creative? I know one of your previous or one of your recent, not previous, I'll say previous, but within the last couple of years, had been to Saudi Arabia. And I believe you were the first BIPOC creative that was permitted to visit I cannot remember the name. I think it's Madine Salah. I don't know if I'm saying it wrong.
Yeah, you got it. No, it was amazing. And I think that's exactly what I'm talking about when I say, you're as a creative color or as a Black creative, you can bring something new to the conversation. So actually being selected to go on that experience, this was kind of pre-Saudi being allowing tourist visas. was insane, and to see that much history in a place that had been closed for years was really an honor. I think what you want to do as a creative in terms of attracting those kind of clients or attracting clients that you might be interested in is in the same way that we expect them to represent us, and we want to go to we will go and we'll spend our money where we're represented. At the same time, I think if you're an aspiring creative, the idea is to also represent them on your page, right? So if you want to work with more hotels, work with like show more hotel work. You know, if you want to work with more tourism boards, make sure you're tagging the tourism boards as you get to the place. I mean, a big thing for me with Saudi was it. Before a year before that, I hadn't had any paid work. It was a new creative on Instagram that was like almost 3 years ago now. But at the same time, I was still traveling and creating and investing my money into that because that was the idea was that I was going to build a business from this one day. And so it made sense at the time to engage with brands on the basis of, hey, this is what I can offer you if you paid me for it. You know?
That's really awesome insight. I wanted you to also share with the audience. You did briefly mention it, but I want you to expand a little bit more. How long have you been doing the Win Collective? You know, creating and also as a group as well.
So Win Collective, the travel community started 3 years ago. Win Collective, the agency, started about 2 years ago. So about a year after we started running the trips. But I've worked in content now for the last like 6-7 years with agencies, which has been really good to just kind of like learn and gather how to build a business in this space and like apply that to the Win Collective. This year has been an interesting one because we've had to pivot more and focus on the agency because, well, you know, anti-Rona decided that no one is going anywhere. So we canceled the majority of the trips or rescheduled them for 2021. But our content agency has grown because of that, because we've had more time to focus on how to offer the best value to brands, whether that's through like editing or whether that's through photography. And there's always value you can add, and you don't need to travel to add that value. I spent the majority of the year in the UK, which is super rare for me, but it meant that we were working with brands from there or working with them remotely.
So what is some of the advice that you would give to individuals who are, I guess, budding or aspiring creatives, whether as a photographer or a visual director as well? And you're awesome at doing that. If people will go ahead and, you know, look in your IG and take a look at some of that work, is like absolutely phenomenal. What is some of the tips and advice that you can give people in regards to becoming just awesome? I don't know how else to put it.
That's a big ask. No, but I think the first thing is always hone your skills. You know, if you're gonna say that you add a certain value to a conversation, I think you should try to figure out how to hone your skills. You know, regarding what you bring to the table. And I think the questions to ask is, what are you good at? You know, what are you good at? What do you enjoy doing the most? What do people generally say you're good at? You know. And I think when you start to like focus, I mean, I'm fully for like, you know, growing and learning skills and stuff like this, but I think it's important first to understand what you're good at and what you bring to the conversation. And as you do that, really honing in on those skills. I think another thing is collaboration over competition for sure. That's super important. I think that's something I've learned from the Win Collective, where I came from a background of like journalism and then went into video production as a producer. At first, I wasn't even holding a camera. I only started holding a camera like about 3 years ago, you know? And I think that's so interesting to note because actually, if I tried to spend all these years honing a new skill, I actually would have just got to a place where I just would have been maybe not as good as a lot of the people who had spent the last 16, 20 years holding that skill and being brought up with it. So I thought, I want to still have access to these people. So I brought what I brought best to the table, which is organizational writing, shooting from a photography perspective, working on video concepts, directing. And then I just collaborated with people that were also really good at what they did. And we were able to build a Win Collective out of that, in that space where it was all about collaboration over competition. Which I think is super important for any creative starting out. Who are the people in your circle? I think people try to network up always. And I think that's actually like, if you can network on the level, like there are people around you right now. Like if you get to network up, that's awesome too. But I mean, and don't like lose those opportunities. But always think of the people who are in your circle that can add to what you're building and how you can add value to them. You know, I see it happen all the time now where people will try to message you because you have like some of my friends have like crazy followers on Instagram and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but there are people within your circle right now who can offer amazing value, who want to build stuff and are willing to build stuff together. And I think that about the Wayne Collective. We were just a bunch of friends, a bunch of misfits who realized we can learn from each other, you know?
No, I completely agree, and I'm so glad you brought up that point as well. It's so important, and that's why I was kind of doing that with you at the same time. So it probably looked weird to the audience that we were both doing that. But it's definitely important to make sure that you look around in your circle, because, like you said, a lot of people are trying to do this and not this, and you can also lose your way as well. You got to make sure that you come up with all other people around you, and that's what we're trying to do here as well with Black Travel Summit. So I'm glad
Absolutely.
that you're with us. You're with us.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to go ahead and let people know that feel free to ask questions. I hope that you can hear Quaye clearly. I can hear him, and he's giving such awesome information. But let us know in the chat if you can hear him clearly, and if you do have any questions as well. So I wanted to also ask, as a BIPOC/BAME, have you come across any challenges that you think are directly related to, I guess, your visage, your appearance to people? Do you feel like that's put you in different situations that you may not have been comfortable in, or just kind of like close the door to some opportunities?
I mean, it's quite tricky to know, and I assume so. To be honest, I don't think I've had any sort of like direct, and I'm splitting it now in terms of what I get to contribute creatively from travel. Of course, I've experienced those situations in travel, and they have been super disheartening and also pretty traumatic, actually, I would say. But in terms of actual creativity, I always just try to like flip it, even though I'm aware of it and I'm aware that maybe we might not have the same opportunities. I always lead the conversation with, what can I bring like to the table that's going to be different to what everyone else is bringing? I remember when Wing Collective pivoted and started the agency, our sort of like top line was, hey, we can help you reach a new diverse audience. You know, we knew that we were having up to 40 people traveling with us. A lot of those guys were creatives. They were really, really interested in it, and they were mostly Black. And so when we pitched to brands, we allowed brands to kind of like have this access to something that other creators could bring to them, you know, because the majority of the people they were working with were European or were white American. And so like, it just meant that this was already just leading the conversation into, hey, we've got this access to this thing. So I've always thought of the things that people think might be a disadvantage as an advantage, you know? I've always approached it like that. Now I said that's very different in travel, and it makes sense why we behave a certain way as Black people in travel. We tend to travel in groups. We tend to ask a lot of questions about what a place is like. But I think on a business angle, I mean, I think it's always better to kind of like focus on value and what you bring to the table.
Who, or I guess, or which corporation or which country has been your favorite place to work with regarding creating content?
Oh wow, that's massive. So the corporation I would say that I've had, this is not a country, but corporation I've had the most fun creating with has been Corona. We shot a project with them in Jamaica that was really about my story as a person with Jamaican Caribbean heritage, and about going back and finding places and a place that I've been to so many times. Also, our recent film with them in the UK, project with them in the UK campaign. They really kind of allow freedom, which I think is a creator's dream. You know, you get to pitch your project, and they're essentially, you partner with them and have their KPIs that they need to reach and stuff like this, but at the same time, they kind of give you free reign as a creative. It's a creator's dream, definitely. So Corona, definitely. I've worked with a few good tourism boards, like the Moroccan tourism board was a dream to work with as well. Saudi Arabian tourism was a dream to work with as well. So.
Awesome. Okay, so now we'll go ahead to the question, and Rose has asked, how would you advise contacting brands for content creation?
Super good. So I think that's a great question. I think there are a lot of ways you can do it. I mean, starting with the things that you have right in front of you. Instagram is obviously a super one. Now, you're not going to pitch their yearly campaign via Instagram, of course, you know, but of course you can get a lot of smaller campaigns, or at least get the contact of the person that you should be talking to via Instagram. So I've actually posted or shared messages that I've sent to brands that we worked with via Instagram. I'm like, hey, I have this amazing opportunity that would actually allow the brand to have access to this more diverse audience. And I know that diversity is a big thing for you guys right now. So do you have the contact of the person that I could pitch to? You know? And generally, most people will be like, yeah, sure. It's just an email, you know? They just hand it over. That's what that person's there for, you know? Like, they just hand over the email of that person. And then you jump into that person's inbox, like with the reference of, hey, I got your email from this person on your Instagram. I would love to have a discussion about like diversity. And I send over a pitch. This pitch document you can do in Photoshop or you can do on Keynote. But if you're a beginner and you don't really know how to do a pitch, I would recommend Canva. Canva's super easy to use, super user friendly. The designs are there for you, so it's kind of a drag and drop. And I always sort of send over like an initial pitch, which is like, this is my top line idea. This is what you want to do with that pitch is to make it super visual for the client to say yes, you know, or like for them to understand. And that's one way. Another way that I do it, which is I've worked with a few brands on this basis where I go, if I know I'm going to do something exciting, like I'm going to go skydiving or I'm going to go hot air ballooning across like Turkey or whatever, I'll say to a brand, I'll reach out to them cold email, find the contact via LinkedIn or through someone else in my network and just go, okay, I'm going here. I've got this amazing opportunity where I'm going to be skydiving and I would love to wear your watch like while I'm skydiving, and I would love to create this much content. This is going to be this much. I'm going to create these many photos, these many short videos, and the price will be this. If you are interested, here's my address, here's my phone number if you want to jump on a call. Everything in that first email. Because what I feel happens with a lot of creatives is we tend to go back and forth and, oh, well, maybe, do you think you could do this, you could do that? Let's just put the proposition in the first email, you know? And so if we try to be as clear as possible, then it minimizes the like back and forth with the client. And it just also just allows them to go, yes, I want this, or let's open up the conversation, or no, this is not interesting to me. And it saves you time, it saves them time. Those are two really good techniques that I use in terms of like smaller projects. For our bigger projects, of course, it's about like being introduced and working through agencies and working on like directors' treatments and concepts, which I'd love to share more about, but I know we don't have a lot of time. So yeah, I hope that answers your question, Rose.
That was amazing. That was amazing. So there is, I believe, one more question in the chat, but we are short for time now. So what we're going to do is we're going to wrap up. Thank you so much, Quaye, for taking your time out. I know that you're in Mexico, so go ahead and also I know you're going to be working hard as well, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you have coming from Mexico. If you don't mind saying maybe just a minute or two more just to kind of go through that question and respond, that would be awesome. But let people know where they can reach you at, and move on to the next.
So guys, jump on to Instagram, search for Alive Like the Wind. Drop me a message, even if it's about any questions that you didn't get to ask in here. I'm super open to answering those on there. I send voice notes though, so just send me a message on there, and I'm more than willing to happy or send you guys over materials or anything that you might need. If this is something you're super interested in. I also have like a Saturday mentorship program that's just more about kind of like once a month, just meeting with people, kind of going through and walking them through these steps on how to turn your creativity into a profession. So.
Okay, well, awesome. Thank you so much, Quaye. And then also, again, thank you everyone for tuning in as well. And up next will be Rose Winter. She'll be talking about how to make traveling a regular part of your lifestyle. Thank you, and stay tuned.
Hi everybody, my name is Rose and welcome to this part of the Black Travel Summit webinar. I'm going to be speaking about how to make travel a regular part of your lifestyle. Thanks so much to Anita and everyone at Black Travel Summit for inviting me to do this. I'm super excited, also a little bit nervous, but we'll see how it goes. If you have any questions, just put them in the chat box. And also I will be talking at a mile a minute just to try and fit this into the time that we have. So hopefully everybody can see my presentation. I think you can, so let's go. So who even am I to be giving this webinar? Like, what do I do? So as I said, my name is Rose. I started travel writing and content creation about 4 years ago. I traveled before that, but I was on a really low income salary job, like my first job out of uni. So I just really tried to make it work. And now I'm doing a lot of travel writing, content creation, and so on. I am born and raised in London. I was a full-time teacher up until a month ago. I decided to go part-time because teaching is very stressful, and also to incorporate some of the things that I love into my regular kind of lifestyle routine, the predominant one being travel. I was taking around 5 to 7 trips per year before coronavirus. I have to be really honest and transparent. I haven't been anywhere for the past year. Literally, it's been exactly a year since I traveled because of coronavirus. But hopefully the future will look better and I'll be able to get somewhere soon. This wasn't an easy thing to do. This is something that I had to kind of make a plan for. I didn't just wake up and be like, oh, I'm going to go on trips. I really had to think about how I'm going to make that work, which is what I'm sharing with you today. I just want to also make really clear that I'm not sponsored at all. I think that that needs to be really transparent. I pay for all my own trips, and I'm also going to hopefully give you a few tips on how you can also travel frequently and look like you're sponsored, but you're not. Also, I have been to 24 countries, and yes, I'm counting Wales and Scotland. We're not going to argue about it. Okay, so 3 methods to start traveling regularly. Now, I've kind of broken it down into 3 different categories, and you can tell that I've been watching a lot of crime series, murder series over lockdown because my categories are motive, means, and opportunity. But it kind of dawned on me a few days ago that that would be a really good way to segment this and show the actual steps that I take to travel regularly. So what I mean by motive, I guess, is your passion. What is your reason to travel? Why do you really want to do this? Mine is the awe, I guess, when I'm exploring a different place, the culture, the history, the perspective that it gives me. I think that being stagnant, staying in one place is like the worst way you could live your life. So that's my motivation, to live life fully and see everything. Means, I guess, is how do you actually do it? So the nitty gritty, the financing, the planning of your time, how do you put in that groundwork to make it work? And then opportunity is about using the resources that we already have at our fingertips, things that you have, you don't even know, any idea about, the networks that you have and so on. So making opportunities for yourself to travel, I guess, using what you already have. So let's go straight into motive. So motive is your motivation. Do you actually have a desire to travel? I'm sure that everyone watching this does have a desire to travel, but why and for what type of experience is it? I think that you can very easily think that traveling is going around the world for 12 weeks with a backpack and not contacting your family. That's just one way of traveling. So what type of experience are you looking for? And do you put travel in your eyesight every single day? You can ask any of my family members, any of my friends. If I'm on my phone, there's probably one thing that I'm doing, and it's looking at destinations, researching destinations. It's just what I'm looking at all the time, and it is a priority in my life. Then with that motivation, you need to also be prepared to make sacrifices in order to achieve those travel goals. So I think when I say sacrifices, I mean, like, you might miss a few birthdays, you might miss some key family events. God willing, those things will happen next year as well. So you shouldn't feel too bad about that, but you might be that person that sometimes isn't always there. Are you prepared for that to happen? And then finally, treating traveling like it's already a regular part of your life. So treat it like a normal expense. Now I've made a kind of mock-up of my monthly expenditure, and on there you'll see my travel goal. This will come out of my earnings as if it's just normal, as if it's a bill, as if it's a food shop. And if there's an emergency where this month I need a little bit more money, then the things that are going to get sacrificed for me are probably the entertainment or the eating out before that travel. So don't let it seem like it's this additional thing that you can just dip in and out of. Obviously, in an emergency, do it, but prioritize and make that something that is really at the top of the list for you. Okay, now means has a lot to it. So done motive, now we're on to means. And this is really about the skeleton of your trip. The skeleton are the things that just have to happen, like your flight, your accommodation, and your activities. Once you know how much those things are going to cost, then you know that that is roughly your budget. So usually what I do when I'm budgeting is working out my available income. You can do this yearly if you're really organized, or you can do this kind of every 2 or 3 months, which is what I like to do. So I look and I think, how many trips do I want to go on? What is the budget that I could afford for those trips? Then for a particular trip, I try to set a budget and work within that. So within that budget, I'll spend up to 30% of that on a flight, up to 35% on accommodation, 20% on key activities, and 15% on food and drink. I don't know why it's showing like this, really weird. So let me give you an example. Last year, in 2020, I wanted to go on 3 trips in the summer. I forgot to say as well, I'm a teacher. Oh no, I did say that. I'm a teacher and I have summer holidays really to utilize. So I wanted to go on 3 trips and I needed £2,000 for that. I worked out that I could go to Morocco for 4 days with a budget of roughly £800. My flight was 190, so it was actually less than what I had been prepared to spend. My accommodation was 109, so way less. You can see that I had up to 35% on there. And my activities, actually, let me just talk about that first. So before I booked any activities, I saw that my flight and accommodation, I had saved so much money, which allowed me to think about what key activities I really wanted to do. And I had a bit more budget to spend on that. So I decided that I was going to do a desert stay and incorporate camels and quad bikes and so on. And that was £300. That ended up being 37% of my budget. So way over what I wanted to spend on key activities. But because I had planned it and I had been able to save in those areas, I didn't feel any guilt at all about doing that. And I had a really great trip. So budgeting really helps you to plan out what you can afford to spend on and what you can't. Then the rest I spent on food and drink, obviously. Okay, so means, the second part to means is spending smart. And I think this actually is probably the most important thing that I do when it comes to traveling regularly, is making that money stretch on every trip. So 3 steps for this is your budget, tracking it, and splashing where you plan to. So with that budget that we just spoke about, it's sticking to it where you have planned to, but also having foresight, doing research, and factoring in everything that you can. And these are some of the overlooked expenses that sometimes we don't factor in. So for me, Ubers, I remember I went to Miami a few years ago. Being from the UK, I just had no idea how big the cities were in America. And you have to get an Uber everywhere, right? So I spent a lot of money on Ubers. Hotel, city, and restaurant taxes is just non-negotiable. You have to pay them if they apply, and they're different in every country. Airport transport, again, I usually just use public transport on all trips, really. They have really good links, but if you are going to book a transfer, then book it in advance and don't get bumped at the airport. Then also, I also researched the cost of living in the place that I'm going to. So I see how much does a standard meal cost? How much is a bottle of water? Like once you know those things, you know how much you're probably going to spend on food and drink. Then things like data in Europe is pretty great, but I don't know, kind of outside Europe, I know it's expensive. You might need to buy a SIM card. Left luggage and ATM always catches me as well. So then every single day when I get home, back to the hotel, I keep a track of that spending. So I'm always kind of writing down, okay, I spent this much today. So that means tomorrow I have this much to play with. Or tomorrow I need to be a little bit more conservative because today I really splashed out and went overboard. But keeping a track of it, I promise you, is not boring. It's actually really satisfying because you know you are making that budget work for that trip. And you're thinking about the 2 more trips or so on that you have planned later on in the year. And then, as I said before, then you can afford to splash on things that you really want to do, or do things, buy things that might make traveling a little easier. I'm thinking like if you've got kids, splashing on transport because it's just a lot easier. So tracking, spending smart is like the thing that saves me and allows me to make every trip stretch to the next, every budget stretch to the next. Okay, now we're on to opportunity. I'm aware that I'm talking really quickly. I hope that I am not over time. But opportunity. So this as well is something that I have done and is so useful. This is using your network. The people that you have, we're all in this summit and we're all networking and making virtual friends. And what's the point of it if we're just going to be stagnant and just only talk on social media and see our friends like once every 5 years? We really need to make use of the network that we have. So I say, list, contact, go. So make a list of who you know and who you're comfortable staying with. Abroad, but also not abroad. It could be in the same country as you, just a different location. And then contact them. Many people are so happy to have house guests to host, and just say how much you really love to come and see them. You're not lying, like you probably do really want to see them. But even if you can't stay with them, which is going to be the case sometimes, not everyone has the means to put you up, then you will surely have meals with them at least, or they might want to entertain you in some ways or drive you around. They also know a lot about the place that that you're going to, so it can be really helpful. And then book your time off and go. Speaking of booking time off, this is the last point on opportunity, taking that opportunity to maximize your time. So I'm aware that not everyone has 13 weeks of holiday like a teacher. And I have to remember that every time I'm speaking to people. But there is a way of maximizing your time so you can have a few more days than are given to you. So check the policy, the paid holiday policy of your employer. Be smart about it, which we'll talk about in a minute, and then book time off. So check it, and then I would say when it comes to being smart, it's about how you're using that time. So I would say avoid booking time off at popular times like Christmas and so on, because most of the time places are closed anyway, and you leave early from work or work from home anyway, so don't waste your holidays there. Now I know in some countries that's a bit different, like in Labor Day, for Labor Day I know like using that day, those days are really important, so just use your own judgment. Utilize flexible working days. So when I first started traveling, when I was about 21, I had flexible working and built up time that I could then take off or even just get paid for in lieu. And then use websites that show you how you can maximize your holidays. So for example, instantoffices.com, you can go to it and it shows you the exact days that you can take off to turn your 25 days of leave into 47. Like, it's insane. It's really just crazy how you can do that. So you have a lot more time to play with. If you're traveling with kids, please book way in advance. Take advantage of package deals because they're usually really good for kids. Remember that airlines let children under 2 fly for free, and also make sure that you check the hotel because sometimes they let kids who are under 4 or 5 stay for free as well. And that's just a snapshot from instantoffices.com. Okay, and then just finally, I just wanted to end on some of my kind of go-to regular travel hacks. So compromise, you're not always going to want to stay in the place that you're not always going to get to stay in the place that you want to stay in. But you can find some really affordable accommodation. I've stayed in some really great places for not that much money. AML credit cards are really useful. They do take a long time to build up, but once you have got those points, you can go to really great places as well. Traveling with partners and friends is really useful. You can half the price that you pay on accommodation just by doing that. So if you have that group of friends, then please utilize that. Research other ways of getting there. So indirect flights have saved me so much money before. Always double check the website. So if you're on Skyscanner or if you're on booking.com, make sure you go to the actual hotel's website, the actual airline's website, because I've actually found cheaper prices sometimes. And then again, make no apologies. As I said, this is about your passion. So you may kind of get some comments. I remember, I've kind of had some comments from people, oh, she's off again and stuff like that, that kind of made me feel a bit negative about my own travel experience. You're not doing this for anything other than to not be stagnant. You know, you're doing this for your why, you're doing this for your experience. And then finally, I'm nearly finished, Anita, I promise. It's finding a side hustle. Now, this is not as click finger as the other ones, but a side hustle can really help you make that extra kind of stream of income to support your traveling. Mine is illustration. So over lockdown, I taught myself how to do digital illustrations, and I didn't think it would get commissions, but it did. And so that helps me to put money in a pot for when I can finally travel post-COVID, feeling a bit safer. You can find that at the Wand Illustrator. But also, I'm going to answer some questions, but also just to let you know, I am doing a 15% discount for all Black Travel Summit attendees. So if you are interested, do just drop me a message. You can find me at Wonder Where I Wander. That is my main account. That's where you'll see all my travels. You can also head to my website, and then you can also get me on the illustration page as well. But I will also just have a look at some questions and see if I could do a good job at answering them. Thank you. So interested to know what are some of the negative comments you have got about traveling often. Yeah, I think it's things that's like, you know, oh, she's off again, or you can't stay in one place, or oh, good for you, lucky for you, as if someone's just like handed me travel on a plate. And it can come from the people that you wouldn't expect it to. Like, it can come from friends or family. And I know my mum's watching this thinking it's her, it's not you, mum. My mum's always been supportive of travel, but yeah, just bearing in mind, like, this is for you, it's your life, and you have to live it in a way that is healthy for you. And if traveling is a part of that, it doesn't have to be, but you're all on the summit, so if the traveling is a part of that, then you really have to just go for it. When I taught at the university, I traveled to present my research and always requested a few extra days so I could actually see the place. That's a really good tip, actually. Working and traveling, that's really good. Like, can you actually work and travel at the same time? I can't do that as a teacher, but I think in other jobs, I know that there's kind of flexibility, especially now in the climate that we're living in, where we're not all in offices. It's really something that you should utilize and talk to your employer about. The best place that I've been is probably Cuba. I think Cuba, there's just nowhere like it on this planet. And I actually found that deal to go to Cuba through something called Jack's Flight Club, which is a, let's say, a platform that you register to, and they send you deals, like deals of the day or deals of the week. And it's really helpful. It tells you, it gives you alerts basically as to cheap flights, and you just quickly book them. Hi, Rosalind. I don't actually travel solo. I've never traveled solo. It's something that I really want to do. I guess I've been a bit scared. I also have my fiance, so I feel like if I went traveling solo, he'd be like, what are you doing? But yeah, I really do want to. I have traveled in a group, yeah, and saved so much money, especially if you're renting a villa or an apartment. It is really, really key that you think about who could come with you. You don't have to be in their space all the time, but it is just so much cheaper. It really is. And what percentage do you split structured itinerary and going with the flow? That's a really good question. I usually just pick out, like I said in the mean stage, I usually just make the skeleton of my trip. I am guilty of like looking at all the things that I could do, but I don't have to stay in a rigid plan, because I think that is not very fun. So you can definitely make sure that you have fluidity with that.
Awesome. So really, really, really great tips. Anybody else, if your question wasn't answered, feel free to reach out to Rose. You can go ahead and let them know where they can reach out to you to have their questions answered.
Yes, so you can reach out to me on, I think I had it here. Yeah, you can reach out to me on Instagram at Wonder Where I Wander. You can also just, if you drop me a message there, I'll definitely reply to you. And then you can also drop me a message on my art page. But Wonder Where I Wander is probably the best place to contact me. It's Wonder Where I Wander. Remember that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Rose. It was a pleasure to have you, and you guys know where you can find her. And that's great. That's all. Thank you so much, Rose.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'll see you shortly.
Sure, okay.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Anita, for that warm welcome. I am forever grateful to you. Thank you just to Black Travel Summit as a whole for putting this all together and for everyone that's involved with it. And today I just want to have a casual conversation about the history of sailing and just sailing culture in general. I'll talk a little bit about that topic, and then I know we just have about 15 minutes. So 20 minutes. So I just want to leave some time for any questions. And then if you want to follow up at the expo booth, that'll be great. We can do that. And just feel free at any time to pop any questions in the chat. So first of all, generally speaking, sailing is a relatively new topic in the Black travel space, especially from a leisure perspective. But I want to back up a bit and go into the history of sailing and some of the hidden figures that contributed to the space. I think it's very, very important to note that Black sailors have been exploring the African coast by water for hundreds of years before colonialism. And not just the coast, but even like the lakes and rivers like the Nile, whether it was for migration or for contributing to fishing industry or things like that. We have always been on the water and utilizing the water to make things happen. And so when we were taken to other parts of the world, we took that knowledge and expertise with us as well. And so many Black sailors were captains of white-owned ships, but there were also notable figures that also made very lucrative careers out of sailing, such as James 410 or Denmark Vesey. These are people that you can, look up when you have the opportunity, but they have a very detailed history and had very interesting lives on the water as sailors. Later, Black sailors fought in conflicts such as the Revolutionary War, and after decades and decades of sailing being tied to the transport of goods and services, by the early 1900s, primarily in Europe, sailing became and leisure sailing became a thing, and also became synonymous with white wealthy people, and that's where people like myself and others, fast forwarding until today, are looking to change that. I currently run Yacht Week East Africa. I'm the host of Yacht Week East Africa. While there are many places in the world where you can have quality sailing experiences, my focus is on Africa, and in East Africa in particular. And so there are from Kenya to down to Tanzania, all the way down to Mozambique, that coastline of Africa is what I focus on, and where it is just as beautiful and amazing as anywhere else in the world. And there are amazing sailing opportunities in that region. But then also venture to the east a bit, and you have the beautiful islands of Seychelles, and you also have Mauritius. And so right now, I conduct sailing trips in the Seychelles. And when you're looking at sailing in Eastern Africa, it is important to note that it is definitely still developing. The industry is still developing. And so when you're looking at options, it's primarily going to be either a private yacht owner who charters or rents their yacht out for the day or the week. And that just entails knowing where to find that yacht owner and reaching out to that yacht owner directly. So there are opportunities for that from Kenya on down to Mozambique, as well as in Seychelles and Mauritius. But also the other way that it would also look like where it'll be a situation where you would go through a yacht charter company, and you'll find most of those opportunities in Seychelles and Mauritius. So in addition to East Africa, I just wanted to also highlight a few other areas, especially on the continent where there is sailing and where you can have some great sailing experiences. One is going to be Durban. Durban, South Africa. There's a place where you can sail in South Africa, and then also in Western Africa, you have Cape Verde. There's also some amazing sailing options there that a lot of people may not know about. So that is, very generally high level. I just wanted to talk about the history of sailing, what's going on in the sailing industry right now, and particularly on the continent. And I'll just leave some time for any questions or comments. And then also, like I said, you can feel free to stop by the booth. If you're interested in Yacht Week East Africa, we can chat there. But I can, our email address is info@yachtweekea.com, info@yachtweekea.com. And then you also have our IG, which should be posted at the expo as well, but it's at Yacht Week EA. So I'm seeing a comment here that I think yachts and river cruises are going to become more popular due to COVID. I sell cruises and other ships and other trips, smaller ships are on the rise. I think that's true. Less people on the yacht, smaller, more intimate experiences. And those exist not only on the coast, but also be on the lookout for other just other areas or other smaller bodies of water where you can have those experiences. There are some bodies of water in Tanzania and Malawi. Lake Malawi is one. Lake Victoria, another one where there are some cruising opportunities as well. Yes, you see Rosalind with, excuse me, we need more, excuse me, more exposure. The Black travel space needs more exposure in this with regards to sailing, absolutely. And through Yacht Week East Africa and other, there's a couple of other travel companies that are also doing doing sailing trips as well. So if you just do a quick search and you'll definitely find us. We're out here representing on the water. What are the length of time for the cruises? So Yacht Week East Africa, we do 10-day vacations. We do 10-day vacations where it's 2 days on land, followed by 7 days on the yacht. So you literally live on the yacht for 7 days with your own captain and private chef. So that's a longer trip where people are coming from abroad, Europe, or whether it be the States, and making the long trip over to Africa. So it's a longer 10-day trip. But we also have partners and opportunities for people that are already in, let's say, the Seychelles or Tanzania, and they just want to, let's say, do a 1-day, 2-day thing. That's also a possibility. One other question from Mark is, if you have not done a yacht or river cruise beyond a day trip, what are some basic things a traveler should know? I think that you should, if it's your first time, first of all, I want to say from Yacht Week East Africa, the way we design our trips, and design our routes on the water, we design them in such a way that it's, whether you're an experienced sailor or it's your first time, you can enjoy it. So we make sure, honestly, when it comes to sailing, it does take some getting used to being on the water. So, so we make sure that, for instance, that, the routes aren't too long. We make sure that there are medication available for anyone that may be susceptible to seasickness, things like that. But I think that some things that you just want to, you want to know is you want to prepare for that potential seasickness. There's a couple of options there. There's the actual tablets that you can take. There are patches that can be worn near the ear, and also pressure point wristbands that can be worn on the wrist that can all just help out with your equilibrium and just being okay on the water. So those are just some things to prepare for. The other thing is that, I think that when you're planning for an extensive amount of time on the water, you don't need much stuff. Like you don't need much stuff. You're primarily in swimwear the entire time. And so you want to be light on the water. And then those are kind of like the two things that you want to do. Just pack light and also prepare for any potential seasickness. Yes, private chefs. We do private chefs on each one of the yachts during Yacht Week East Africa. We are, we've had to postpone trips for 2020 because of COVID, but we are restarting in 2021 and scheduled to host a trip in September 2021 in the Seychelles. And then, yes, okay, so can you teach the mechanics of sailing? So we definitely have captains that are very interactive, and you could do this on most sailing trips. Captains are become part of the experience, and you have a lot of great conversations with the captains, and it is an opportunity just to maybe on a trip to learn the basics of sailing and kind of like a sailing 101 experience on the yachts. But in order to, if you want to actually learn how to sail, it would take, you actually attending a course and kind of going through the full process. But you can get your feet wet a little bit with the captain. Again, I'm happy to be here, happy to further the conversation around sailing and yachting. It's an amazing experience. It's a unique way to explore a country. And definitely, like I said, my focus is on East Africa, and you're able to see countries like Tanzania and the Seychelles in a whole different light when you're on the water and experiencing it in that way. So yes, like I said, also, if you want to follow up and talk about the history and kind of like unpack that a little bit more, we could do that either at the booth, or feel free to also reach out to us via email or IG. So I talked about seasickness a bit, but for people who have concerns regarding safety and just how safe is it? Oh, no worry, no problem, Tanya. But yeah, so about safety, it is again, a lot of the safety protocol is built into the routes that we use. I think that anytime you're going to have a yacht on the water, and also, and in our case, an entire fleet of yachts on the water, all sailing at the same time, we make sure that we are connected with local authorities, and that we design the routing so that if we ever need to get to land via speedboat, we built that into the protocol. And then we're always connected with the authorities, and they know our exact location throughout the entire experience. So that's kind of, we've plotted, and we know where any facilities that we may need to have access to during the trip. We have plans and routes for that. So we definitely think about all those things and create a very safe environment. I could say that in the Seychelles, it's one of those, if you might have heard David Germain's presentation yesterday, he was talking about how it is 115 islands, and how there are 3 main islands that are primarily most people live. My main point in saying that is, we almost have some of these islands to ourselves when we travel to them, and it's not necessarily, it's not necessarily heavily populated with people during on some of the islands, and so it's a very just serene, and some islands are full of vibes and nightlife and things like that, and others are very serene and beautiful and quiet and peaceful. But it's just an overall peaceful, beautiful experience, and it's also very, very safe. Internet access, yes, is not like not like the internet access that you may have at home, but there is internet access. There's like mobile devices that we can use, or modems that we can use to pick up internet signals. So yes, people, people definitely have access to WhatsApp and social media during the whole experience. So as far as like photos and photo shoots and backdrops, East Africa is unparalleled. It definitely provides all of that and then some. So I think that may be close to my time. And so if you have any follow-up questions or you want to reach out directly, feel free. I'll be at the expo at the booth, and it was my pleasure to speak with you today.
Hope everyone's good. Yeah, as Anita said, my name is Epic Zero. Yeah, I'm a documentary filmmaker, documentarian. Work with a bunch of different organizations, Global Faction, all based in the UK here. I Am Hip Hop Magazine, and End of the Week, which is based out in New York, but has chapters in 20 countries around the world. So I'm very lucky in what I get to do in traveling around the world. And meeting different people, experiencing different cultures, getting to see different parts of the world, which is how I met Anita. I recently put a film out called Release the Fear, The Sacred Journey, which was put together by a brilliant singer-songwriter called Natty, international reggae singer based here in London. We traveled out to the Venezuelan Amazon to live with the PRO people for a few weeks. Documented that journey, and so yeah, like I said, it's just sort of, it's, to me, one of the sort of really striking things when I was out there was that the shaman who we met out there, Shaman Rufino, had said to Natty on the previous journey he'd been out there, is that his people previously looked like us. He's similar complexion to me. Also, he's a Rasta man, so as his hair looks, and yeah, it's just one of these sort of things that when we talk about Black history, we talk about African history, I'm sure a lot of people on here will know how widely, people of the African continent have traveled around the world over thousands and thousands of years. And by, many estimations, the reason why the earth is populated by human beings is because we've traveled all across the world. And so for me, something like Black History Month, which I think is celebrated in the US in February, and we celebrate it over here in October, to me it's one of the, I understand the logic of it, but it's very problematic for me when our history is 24/7. We're living our history. And so, yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about that, and sort of in my travels and in sort of the places I've been around the world, I've had these encounters with people. You get it a lot. I'm sure a lot of you have heard stuff like this. People say to me, "Oh, well, where are you from?" You say London, and they're like, "Oh, but where are you really from?" Or, some people genuinely think there's no Black people in England, and still think this. And even when they do, it's sort of like, I have friends around the world who do stuff like message me on the Queen's birthday and say congratulations. Even knowing my politics and knowing certain things I think and feel, will say stuff like this, and it's a bit, I just think it's an opportunity to try and sort of show, one, that we're here, and two, sort of some of the really important people in our history, in our more recent history. So again, I'm sure a lot of you guys will know this already, but Europe, Africa, and Asia have been linked together, and through trade and all kinds of different things over centuries. This is the sort of very, very low quality picture of the Silk Route and the trans-Saharan trade routes that were there for, before sort of first century BC and stuff like that. And so there's been African people of African origin in Europe for centuries, from the Phoenicians. There's research that says the Dogon people, and then their science have been in Europe for thousands of years. There were Black Romans, and there's physical evidence of Black Romans being found in the UK. Those are just a few examples. I haven't really got time to go into sort of the long details of that. But the majority of people who are here now are kind of first, second, third generation immigrants from Britain's colonies, former colonies. And so all of these, giants of the 20th century, I'm sure everyone here will know Marcus Garvey, Kwame Nkrumah, Sade, Bob Marley, Maurice Bishop, Lord Kitchener, Sylvia Wynter, and I always pronounce his name wrong, Ngugi wa Thiong'o, all massive figures who lived at some point in the UK to work, to study. Marcus Garvey died here. And this is a lot of their history is often our history. We're often the children of this sort of generation, or came here ourselves as children. I personally was born here. My family, my father is from Grenada in the Caribbean. And so when I talk about these things, and we think about this a lot of the time, the way I sort of look at it is very much through the lens of someone like Paul Gilroy. Again, another incredible educator, university teacher, writer, who theorized the idea of the Black Atlantic, that, because of the way we came to be on this land, we spread out across these continents and have so much in common in terms of culture, in terms of language, in terms of the music we listen to, the art we make, the political thinking we have. And so there is all this sort of massive crossover, which again, is sort of, I think, in terms of Black travel, a lot of you guys will know this, having, linked up with people across the world and had the kind of conversations we have when we do these things. But I think I'm going to try and sort of just touch on some figures who are important to me, and I think who represent these things quite well. And these two figures are quite interesting. So the one on the left is Arthur Wharton, who I'm not sure when this picture was taken, but he was born in 1865 in Accra, and he's mixed heritage, Grenadian and Ghanaian. He was Ghanaian heritage, Fante heritage, actually, in what was formerly the Gold Coast colony of the UK, of the British Empire. And he's considered to be the first professional football player or soccer player. And again, this is someone who came here long before the sort of the 20th century, or the 1950s and 60s, of what's called the Windrush generation from the Caribbean. He was here a lot earlier than that, and is considered to be the first professional football player or soccer player in the world. Really interesting history I haven't got time to go into, but the guy on the right on my screen is Gil Heron, who is very much a sort of example of this Black Atlantic culture. Born in Kingston, Jamaica in 1922, moved to Canada, enlisted in the Canadian Air Force, was the top scorer in the North American Soccer League in 1946, and eventually joined Celtic. He became the first professional Black football player in the UK, in Scotland. Celtic's a massive football club or soccer club. For those of you who don't follow football, they're huge for European football. And I kind of introduced these two, and Gil Heron in particular, to let you know that he's the father of Gil Scott Heron. And I'm sure everyone knows who Gil Scott Heron is. Was sort of the godfather of hip hop, godfather of rap at least, and massive on that sort of jazz poetry scene of the 1970s and beyond. And he is someone who's been massively influential in my life and massively influential in hip hop. And as a hip hop MC, his work and the work of that generation and that scene led to what we have as hip hop today and beyond. But in the UK, we have a slightly different tradition. There's obviously a link up between hip hop and the different influences of jazz in the UK. The UK jazz scene right now is actually incredible. But with this sort of Windrush, what's called the Windrush generation, there was this massive influx of people on literally the first ship that came from Jamaica and Trinidad was called the Windrush, the Empire Windrush. And that generation of Caribbean people who came over, I'm quite biased in this one. I talk a lot about Caribbean culture. That's my people are from Grenada, so it's a little bit Caribbean biased. There'll be African people from different parts of the continent who will have a different story. But that's one thing about London and Birmingham and these, melting pots of cities that come together in these massive sort of cultural melting pots. The Black community come over from wherever you're coming. We mix and we share our cultures. And sound system culture coming over from the Caribbean was a massive thing in the 1970s, and where the jazz poetry scene was something that was huge in the US and around the world, and flowed over here. The dub poetry scene was something that was massive. Poets, toasting, rapping, spitting, however you want to call it, over dub reggae through sound system culture. And one of the leading architects of that is a man called Linton Kwesi Johnson, who was, as a youth, he was a member of the Black Panther Party, Black Panther UK Party. And what he represented was sort of the voice of a generation of people who he came over to Brixton in the 1960s as a child to live with his father and mother, born in Jamaica in 1952. And a lot of the time, the ideology of what Britain would tell to the rest of the world, and was that it was, this is the so-called motherland, the so-called mother country of the empire, and it's, the streets are paved with gold and all this kind of talk. Linton Kwesi Johnson was of a generation who realized that wasn't true, and they came over here. Massive racism, massive amounts of inequality. A lot of people were incredibly qualified, loads of skills that they could bring, but were told they weren't allowed to do certain jobs. Were denied a lot of different opportunities, and so his poetry really represented that generation and the things that they had to go through. He has a brilliant poem that's called "England is a Bitch," and he described London when he came as cold and ugly, and wasn't a picture book idea of what he thought he'd be coming to. And for those of you who don't read Jamaican patois, he says England is a bitch. There's no escaping it. England is a bitch. Nobody trying to hide from it. And when you get your little wage packet, they rob it with their big tax racket. You have to struggle to make ends meet, and when you go to bed, you just can't sleep. And that was the experience of a lot of sort of my grandparents' generation, my father's generation. My father's a similar age to Linton Kwesi Johnson, came over as an 11-year-old. And this is the world that they were faced and were born into. Another person who was massively influential in that dub reggae poetry scene was Benjamin Zephaniah, who was born in Birmingham in 1958. And he's had an incredible life. One of these people who sort of overcame that hardship, through the will of his desire to do what he did and do what he does. Really just transformed his life, and through his music, he's one of the most celebrated poets and writers of that Britain has ever produced. One of the most incredible artists of our time. And it's like I haven't got time to go into all of his achievements, but he was the first person to record with the Wailers after Bob Marley's death. It was a tribute song to Nelson Mandela. And when Mandela heard it whilst he was in prison, it was really inspiring to him. When Mandela came out of prison, he requested a meeting with Benjamin Zephaniah. And you imagine what it would be like to have Nelson Mandela request to see you. That's the kind of person Benjamin Zephaniah is. And yeah, they're both examples of people who sort of led to the culture that we have of hip hop in the UK, of garage, of grime, of drum and bass and jungle, and to sort of the UK drill sounds that are coming out today. Obviously, there's that again, this sort of Black Atlantic mixed heritage between the influence of American hip hop on us, but also Afro beats on the continent, on the African continent, and all these different sort of melting pot that is London. But the final one I'm going to mention is someone who's really, really influential to that culture in a different way. It didn't come out directly into that way. Her name is Claudia Jones, who was born in Trinidad, and originally emigrated with her family to the US. There she became a communist political activist, feminist activist, and a Black nationalist. And through her activities, she was deported. She has a very similar story to sort of C.L.R. James, who's also a massive figure over here, has a library named after him. yeah, she was deported back to Trinidad, and Trinidad wouldn't take her. The view of the empire at the time was that her activities could be better monitored being in London as opposed to being in Trinidad. So they sent her to London. She got here and she started organizing immediately. She started the West Indian Gazette, which is credited as the first major black newspaper in the UK, and it was really an organizing tool for fighting back against the racism, the hideous racism that was faced by the community at the time, Caribbean and African and Asian community. There was a lot of solidarity in times to fight against the racism that was faced by the communities at that time. She's also seen as like the theoretical basis. Some of her work is the theoretical basis for intersectional feminism, and she's also one of the architects of what eventually led to the Notting Hill Carnival. Her original vision was the London Carnival, which she created as a means in the Notting Hill community. Her one was actually originally held in St Pancras near King's Cross, but there was a lot of violence, race riots that had hit in Notting Hill and Nottingham and other parts of the country, and the Caribbean Carnival was created to be something that could bring people together through art and culture, and give us a taste of home when we're stuck on this tiny, freezing, cold island in the North Sea, and be a force of sort of political activism through dance, music, and culture. And so she's massively influential. And again, like I said, that sound system culture is something that we are deeply, deeply proud of here in the UK, in London, and beyond. And it's the second biggest street party in the world, I think, only after Rio. And the Rio Carnival, and the biggest one in Europe. So for anyone who's interested in traveling to London, who hasn't been to this, August is the time to come. Of course, we didn't get to do it this year, but it's a staple of our community since the time of Claudia Jones. So I'm going to leave it there so we have a bit of time for questions if there are any questions. But just so you can know a bit, where to check me, my website is there, ape0.co.uk. Global Faction, I Am Hip Hop, and End of the Week all have our website. So at some point when you can sort of look back over, you can take a look at those. I'm just trying to scroll up and see what I can find. Tonya, you're saying you lived in London for a few years. Yeah, this is the thing, is that, I think it's quite similar in the US, this idea of there being a Black History Month. This is the kind of thing, we need to talk about in our communities all the time, and really and truly the world should be talking about all the time. It's something that's, there's a lot of talk about sort of the UK or England being less racist than the US or other parts of the world, and I really argue that that's not true. Just as it might not be as extreme in the violence, and it is violent. It's very violent at times. And if you think about empire, it's been extremely violent. The genocide that's been done to people all over the world. But it's just very, very subtle in these ways of just not really talking about these things and not understanding the history of the things that we have to go through and the things that we've lived. So I appreciate you making that comment, and it's something that we have to live with every day out here. Mark Prince, I agree. This isn't told enough, and we need to tell it more. Everyone needs to sort of understand this, in my opinion. Sharia, thank you for the comment. With Miller, in Washington, D.C., the Caribbean Carnival was part of the legislation often unfortunately challenged because of the finances, but still the place for us to feel like we are home. Exactly that. And that's a big reason why we are, why it's on, why it's done every year, is to make people feel like it's at home. But it's been a real political battle, because they've tried to cancel it every year. And the way it's reported even is always seen as this violent thing, violent Black people fighting each other. How many deaths this year, or how many stabbings or whatever this year at Notting Hill Carnival, when the amount of drugs and the amount of violence at other festivals around the country, that's never the focus. And so they've been trying to move it out of the city, out of the streets into Hyde Park, which is similar to Central Park in New York. And yeah, we're just trying not to have it, really. And like I said, this year, because of COVID, it had to get shut down, but hopefully it should still be back next year, and the people can express ourselves and keep this great tradition alive. Thank you, everyone. yeah, I guess I'm going to leave it there. So just, yeah, if you want to reach out to me in the booth, I'm going to be about for a bit. If there's other stuff you want to talk about. And yeah, please do check out my latest film. It's on, if you just type in Global Faction or type in Release the Fear Natty to YouTube, it'll be on there. It's also on Forbidden Knowledge TV, Billy Carson's platform. And yeah, get in touch. I'm on Instagram is what I'm most active on. So it's apex.0 on Instagram. Yeah, look forward to talking to you, man. If you've got any questions about UK or any recommendations, let me know. And thanks for all the content I've seen earlier. Been on for a few hours. And Anita, as always.
Thank you so much, Apex, for sharing our history with some of these people. And I'm glad everyone enjoyed it. You guys learned a lot. Thank you so much. Remember, he has a booth as well, so feel free to reach out to him via the expo. He may be in there for a few minutes, but you can also reach out to him. We've pinned it to the top of this chat box where you can reach out to him on IG at apex.0. So again, thank you so much again, Apex, and it was a pleasure to have you. And we'll definitely see you soon, and we'll work with you soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Anita. Bless up.
Blessings.
All right. So let's get started. So my name is Lawrence Phillips. I'm the founder and CEO of We Work to Travel. And essentially, it's a web-based travel platform that is dedicated to inspiring Black travel, but also eliminating the concerns of Black and Brown travelers so they can confidently explore the world. So essentially, we're making kind of like a Black TripAdvisor. So today's session, I'll give you a little bit of history about myself, talk about the platform, kind of give you a quick demo of it, and then I have some opportunities that you can take advantage of kind of at the end of the session. All right, so I am going to jump in. I have slides I do want to share. So I'm going to share my screen. It should be sharing now. And then I'm going to jump into presentation mode. Okay, and here we go. So as I kind of said, give you a little background about myself. So Lawrence Omar Phillips. Sometimes I go by Lawrence, sometimes I go by Omar. It's kind of confusing. But essentially, my background is engineering. I got an electrical engineering degree from Georgia Tech. I worked at Accenture for about 8 years doing IT consulting. So this picture is kind of at the peak of my career where I was actually taking a private jet to a client site. But this is also where I realized, okay, I'm kind of tired and burnt out, and I'll touch on that a little bit later. I'm from Boston. I currently live in Harlem, and the family is from Barbados. Big ups. So family is very important to me. So again, I like just to, whenever I talk, to give you some background on myself. So been married for about 2 years. I just had a recent baby girl. She's actually 5 months today on the dot. So she's a COVID baby. So I definitely have stories of how that whole labor process was at the hospital. You can see the kind of that picture on our wedding day. I'm pretty sure some soca just came on. I was kind of acting crazy. And then my wife and I, we travel quite a bit. So of course, our baby Naomi is also going to be traveling. So you can see that she's a tiny traveler as well. A little bit more about me. So I kind of try a lot of different things. So I guess we can say I'm a hustler. So I have a few rental properties and I also do some flips from time to time. So this is some of the things that I do to help supplement my income. So you can see a before and after of the exterior, the before and after of the kitchen and the bathroom. So I kind of do a variety of different things to help kind of support my travel habit. And traveling, right? So that's the biggest thing here that I'm talking through. So back in 2015, when I was working at Accenture, I kind of got burnt out, like I said, and I just got tired of I got tired of just working these long hours. So I decided to take a break and travel for a year. So when I traveled in 2015, I took a whole year off. I did 30 plus countries, all 7 continents. You can kind of see some of the highlights of some of those places there. So that includes Antarctica, where I'm hanging out with camels. I've kissed giraffes for some reason. In North America, that's kind of me in Barbados towards the end of my trip with my great aunt. So while I was traveling, I noticed kind of 2 things. One, it took an absorbent amount of time to research a next destination. So if I wanted to party a place, or if I wanted to eat a certain type of food, if I wanted to figure out where to stay, I always had to go to different websites. So it was really frustrating. It took a lot of time that there was no central place that had that information. Secondly, as a Black traveler, I was kind of nervous going to certain places. Didn't know if there was racism there. Didn't know how they would treat Black people. And because of those two reasons, I created We Work to Travel. So that's the problem, right? Black and brown travelers are concerned about how they will be treated in other countries. And that was kind of my perspective. There also was a poll that we did. So you can kind of see that here. And I think this kind of emphasizes that it's just not me, right? I think Black and brown travelers in general are concerned when they go to different places. So if you see right here, being Black is researching what racism is like in another city or country before traveling there. Over 80% of you guys and gals have said, yes, you agree. So it's not something that I think I was just kind of experiencing personally. I think it's something that applies, unfortunately, to Black and brown travelers overall. And that's kind of the reality of our situation. When it comes to how we can kind of mitigate that, I think it's connecting to travelers, right? So I think if you look like me and you tell me how a place is, it's a much more trusted advice. So I think a connection is important. Also, I think we're just travelers in general, right? So we just need to see, depending on what our travel style is, can we have kind of a central place to have all this information? That's kind of what I'm kind of pointing to in that third bullet right there. So what's the solution? The solution is the web-based travel platform, where it's really unique in that we don't rate activities, we rate cities. So cities have a score for adventure, for things to do, for romance, for relaxation, history, affordability, and even what it's like traveling while Black. So really the platform is intended to provide comfort to other Black travelers, help us save time when we're researching trips, and find cities that just meet our criteria. That's the ultimate goal. So what's the product? The product is the Black TripAdvisor, right? So this is what I kind of akin to what the platform has kind of been. Feedback and people have said that it kind of is like. So how it works is kind of 3 steps. 1, you search for a destination on our homepage. And again, I'll show you a demo of this shortly. You can look at the tips that are there. So you can read through them. They're all going to be organized by the different categories. And based off the reviews, you can decide, hey, do I want to book a trip? So if you book a trip on our site, you book with one of our partners at no additional cost to you, we'll get a commission, but you can book like hotels, flights, rental cars. So we're really offering kind of a full scale kind of implementation when it comes to being able to kind of have your whole travel experience be on the platform itself. So where we are today. So one, again, that inspiration is a big part, and we do inspiration through our Instagram following. We have over 117,000 followers on Instagram. On the website, we have 5,000 plus travel tips from Black and brown travelers. And we also have over 400 destinations of reviews. Also, kind of, if you were in yesterday's session, there was a company called Nappy that showed kind of stock images of Black and brown travelers. So I wanted to give them a shout out here. I added that to the slide after kind of seeing their presentation. So definitely want to kind of support kind of all the way around. So last thing I'll show before I show the demo is kind of user testimonials. So this is what people actually gave legitimate feedback. So we got Miss Briex. I've always wanted to go on a cruise, but always been a little apprehensive traveling while Black. But I've seen some reviews that have been reassuring. It's not like this is very important. You got Editor's Pick. Thank you for creating a platform for Black people to merge and share their travel experiences. And full show why. I really love that your website includes Travel While Black section. So important and lacking in the tourism review industry. So these comments are what kind of keep me going and making sure we continue to develop on the site, continue to add different functionality, because I can see that it's really making a difference. So now I'll kind of give you a quick demo of the site. So just quickly showing our Instagram page. This is kind of where I alluded to inspiring Black travel. So a lot of pictures here, really promoting Black travel. And this is the site. So if you go to weworktotravel.com, you will see that you can search for a city, as I kind of showed in the slides, and everything is kind of being about a Black traveler. So you wonder what's like traveling while Black, Black TripAdvisor, you can book your trips, upgrade your membership. But the whole idea is that you can enter in your destination here. So there's 2 ways this can work. You can enter in like France. Let's say you're going to France, but you're not really sure what city you want to go to. You can just type in France. And if you typed in France, you'll be navigated to a page like this. And this shows all the different cities for France. So Bordeaux, Lyon, Marseille, like all the different cities. And you can kind of pick and see which ones may be of interest to you. and they all have reviews by other users. There's also some destinations in France. We don't have all of them. We're still kind of working towards it, but some of them don't have reviews. So again, if you've been to some of these places, even if it's not France, and you can share your experience, it'd be awesome, because again, this is really a tool for us to help us kind of travel more intentionally and with the information we need. Another way you can navigate is if you can go by continent. So for Africa, for example, all these different countries are here. Again, you can see all these different reviews. You can kind of click in, and I'll show you a couple of them, what it looks like when you click in. But just give you an idea that there's a lot of content on the site that you can look at that can help you plan your trip. So now let's say we just looked up Prague, right? You wanted to go to Prague. And this is why I say that the platform is unique, because you can see Prague has a 3.9 overall scale. So maybe overall, when you consider all these categories, it's not the highest. But if you love history, Prague will be the place for you, because look how high that history score is. So you can see there's various categories. There's things to do, adventure, history, affordability, relaxation, local food, romance, nightlife, and traveling while Black. And it's not just my opinion. It's a variety of other Black and brown travelers' opinions that help kind of give you a viewpoint. So one other thing I want to call out before I kind of show you some of those reviews is, again, you can book your trip with us. So we do have some partners here. So if you do booking.com, HomeAway, Viator, you can do hotels with us, vacation rentals, activities, flights, car rentals. Again, at no additional cost to you. We'll get a small commission. So definitely, if you find the site useful, if these tips are helping you, by all means, you know, kind of go to our site, book through here, and it helps us out tremendously. So if I was to kind of navigate down to here, I kind of wanted to show you how the structure is. So there you go. You can see how you can leave your tips right there with your own star category. And then right here, you kind of get the overall view. So Travel While Black has a 3.6 out of 5. Now that's not that great. And what I want to focus on is, with the site, we're not discouraging you or encouraging you to travel to a destination. We want to just give you a breadth of information. One person's experience might be totally different from another's, but we want to at least give you an idea of what can actually happen. So with these reviews, you can see they're kind of broken out by different categories that I can kind of click through here. I'm going to focus on the Traveling While Black one. So I'm not going to read through all of them, but I'm going to call out two that I think are really important for us to look at. So here's a Traveling While Black. And this one, Matho, he said, I was skeptical about traveling as a Black person, but that never really stopped him from going. So he still went forward with Prague. His Uber driver dropped him off. Long story short, he had an issue with his Airbnb. And although he was skeptical, the random neighbor saw him and said, hey, come in, use our phone, grab a glass of wine, and just chill out here. And you can call him and work it out. So I think his anticipation of what Prague was like was totally different than, you know, what actually happened. That's one person's experience. You scroll down, again, a variety of different experiences. This your person here said, as a Black woman, I was met with a lot of racism and it turned me off so much I left the country early. So from teenagers kind of circling and saying kind of crazy things, it just shows that there's different experiences for different people. But I want Black and brown travelers not to be afraid, but to know what they're walking into. And that's what this site is really primarily trying to do. So another thing, let's Prague. Let's go to Maldives real quick. So I guess one question would be, how many of you guys have been to the Maldives, or is it on your list, right? I think there might be a poll that can be there. So you check out the poll, you can answer that in the chat. You know, how many of you guys have been to the Maldives, or is it still on your list? So let's look at the Maldives. So again, you kind of can see how the ratings work. If I scroll down here. So the Maldives, if you want to relax, this is the place. It's 5 out of 5. If you want to be romantic, yo, you should be here, right? But if you want it to be affordable, you might want to check yourself. So in other words, it kind of gives you a good idea of like what you're going to encounter when you go to the Maldives. So that's kind of one of the intents of that overview. One other thing I'll show you is to help form better community as well. There's profiles. So if I click on Pinterworld here, you can see that this is their profile. So you can figure out the travel style. You can figure out their hometown. Also, he's a premium member, so we actually promote his Instagram and his blog link. I'll talk about that in a little bit. And you can see that in his own personal profile, he has a travel map. So it's almost like a travel diary. So every review that you leave on the website, we track the corresponding country and your personal travel map. And we have all these stats here that are just kind of fun for you to keep track of. Here's another person, Nandi Hart. She's one of our kind of avid and very active reviewers and leaves a lot of travel tips. So you can see with hers, she has over 30 countries she's been to. and she has a lot of reviews that she's left for the community. So the idea here is that, for every review you leave, we try to give you like a consolation prize of not only being able to get people to learn more about you, but also to track kind of the countries in your personal travel map. So this upgrade membership button, I'll touch on this briefly before I start to close, is essentially what we're trying to do in our next phase is help creators, help Black creators win, to be honest, right? That's what we want to do. So what we have right now are directories for creators. We have a blogger directory, so you can see there's an assortment of bloggers here, and we promote their brand on our Instagram page for the Insta stories. So if you've been following us, you see like all this week we've been promoting some of these bloggers and vloggers on our platform. We have the same thing for podcasters, same thing for vloggers. So again, it's a directory that if you're a creator, you want exposure to our 117,000 plus followers, if you want tips on how to grow your brand like we were able to do, you can join this community. I don't have time to go into all the detail here, but this is it's a special premium membership that we have. And right now we're only charging $25 basically a year. If you're a single content creator, it's $40 per year. If you're a multi-level content creator, it goes through all the details here. We can talk about it later, but it tells you kind of what you get with everything. And also for those who are part of this session, we actually will give a discount for you guys. So that's just something to keep in mind as well. And this is kind of the VIP checkout page. So to close, kind of where do we want to go from here, right? So right now we have 5,000 travel tips on the platform, and it's amazing. Thank you guys so much for leaving reviews. Our next goal is to get 10,000 plus travel tips from Black and brown travelers. Secondly, we want to continue building community. So we want to foster these authentic relationships. So whether you're a free member leaving reviews, or you're a premium member that's a blogger, vlogger, or podcaster that we're promoting and help grow your brand, we really want to build community. Thirdly, we want you guys to book your trips through us. So if you find that the reviews and the tips of where to stay, the Airbnb links of where people have been, all that information about traveling while Black, if you find that information useful, we would actually just, book through our site. You can probably use booking.com anyways. We actually have a Marriott deal we're working through right now. You might already book with Marriott. So if you work through us, we just get a small commission at no additional cost to you. And lastly, what we're trying to do ultimately is build a Black travel ecosystem. So we really want to help these Black dollars circulate. So whether it's your products, travel products, if you're a creator, organized trips, doesn't matter. We want to really have the tech to help support that business. So next steps, become a free member. You can register on the website, leave some travel tips on the site. It'd be great. If you want to be a premium community member, again, if you're a blogger, or podcaster, give you that discount code, Black Travel Summit BTS 15 off. For 15% off, you can look at that link and do a checkout. And again, just use that book it button to book your hotels, flights, activities, vacation rentals, etc. And that's it. This is the Black TripAdvisor, and this is what we're trying to do to help Black and brown travelers confidently explore the world. Okay, it doesn't look like there's questions. Well, I'm glad you guys liked it. Yep. So I'll be in a booth and I'll hang out in the booth for a little bit if you have any questions, and look forward to chatting with you guys, and definitely check out the site, use the information, and continue traveling safely under COVID.
So without further ado, welcome to Travel and Turn Up. And then we're just going to, I briefly mentioned how we offer Trends and Tings every week, where we're discussing the current affairs, current events based around travel. And then also we interview CEOs of different companies. I mentioned how we recently interviewed Eric Martin of Black and Abroad. We interviewed Sheree of Tastemakers. We interviewed Kelsy Horton of Yacht Week East Africa. So just go and check us out. But let's jump into it. What are we talking about today,
Wall Street
guys?
Fire of Major Lazer too. Don't forget about Wall Street.
Oh yeah. Yes. But okay, what are we talking about today, guys? Let's just jump into it.
Oh my God. Can I tell you guys, when you guys listen to the podcast, you'll see one thing is clear, is that Tiffany consistently tries to force us to be on her schedule. It's a consistent thing. So if we're talking about something, Tiffany will cut us off in the middle and be like, all right, next topic. All right, what are we talking about next? I just want to let you know. So, you know, if this is like a live recording of the pod, be ready for that. Be ready for that. Anyway, David. All right. So what's going on in the world of Black travel this week, guys? Africa's reopened. That's December.
Yep. Africa has reopened for the most part. So I was just briefly speaking about that international borders have reopened. For even South Africa is reopened, and they were one of the last countries to reopen. They represented more than half of the COVID cases on the continent. So when you see South Africa making strides to reopen the country and then showing that they're taking steps and protocols to keep travelers safe when arriving into the country, that's big and it says a lot for the continent. So I'm ready to begin traveling throughout the continent. We have Ghana has reopened where you're taking COVID tests on arrival. Morocco has reopened. Kenya has reopened. Tanzania was one of the first countries to reopen. Ethiopia. And I would say for all of those who are listening, to stay up to date with countries reopening their borders and travel restrictions, kayak.com has a very, very great informational platform. So let us know. We mentioned Ghana. Are you guys going to Ghana for that?
Hold on. Before we even go any further, so David, you see what just happened here, though, right? No, but you saw what just happened, right? Well, so you listed all the countries that opened except for the actual biggest country in Africa,
which is Congo.
Population-wise.
Oh, Nigeria, Niger. You guys were late today, so we just pushed Nigeria to the side. Yes, Nigeria is reopened for travel, but we're going to circle back because we have it's a lot of political turmoil or it's going on with EmCee. So I'm not sure who's booking their tickets to travel, but I'm not hating on Nigeria. But let me know. Are you going to Nigeria after Ghana in December? Are you guys going to Dirty December? What is it looking like?
I can't lie. Dirty December might be a go, Might have to come through because you know what? It's crazy as well. I think it's just, especially in the last few weeks, since it's been open, but I've just been hearing everyone saying that they're going. So Nigeria can't carry last. We have to arrive.
I mean, of course, bro. We bring the vibes anywhere we go. So, Dirty December this year is a go. Thank goodness. Of course, it's going to be a little bit different. I understand that, and I think everyone should kind of understand that before they come down. But it's still going to be a good time. So yeah, I'm definitely going to be there. As you guys know, my feet have to touch West African soil once every year. You know what I'm saying? So like once again, it gotta just calmly just touch ground.
Yeah, guys, these guys are sophisticated Nigerians. So, they don't dabble and they just dibble and dabble in Nigeria. They don't really go out talking out in the streets. So,
what I was going to say? I feel like this year, because of how different it's going to be, it's probably actually the best time to really embrace, not just in Nigeria, but elsewhere in Africa, like the culture itself. Because I think a lot of the time when people go, it might just be for things that you have scheduled as part of your itinerary, which might be like party kind of events or, other kind of events. But I think while this year there might not be as many events or as many things open, it's also a good opportunity to mix in with regular people and have a better understanding of, what the culture is like for everyday people.
Right. It's a question that someone is Rosalind asked, does Africa have any quarantine restrictions? So we're going to speak of specific countries in Africa. So Ghana, we were speaking with Mr. Quaye Ajiman, who's the CEO of Ghana Tourism Authority, and we mentioned if you take the test on arrival in Ghana, what happens? And they said that you will be transferred to another location in order to quarantine. So those are things that you have to keep in mind, that for the countries that do require. There's not too many that require tests on arrival, though. Ghana is one of the few. Say, for instance, like with Kenya, you must show a negative COVID result from a test taken within 72 hours before traveling. So you will know beforehand if you have COVID or not. So again, I would just say pay attention to do your research, or even with traveling with a travel company, as one of the three of us may have, we provide all of this information for you. But when you're at home, just again, I think kayak.com, because they're updating in every 48 hours, 24 to 48 hours, it's a good source. So,
Tiffany, why do you keep pushing like competitors, like websites? I'm just wondering, like, why does that keep being the thing?
No, because we all win together. If we promote.
But kayak's not black owned though.
Oh, I thought you were talking about with other travel companies. So what is?
No, I'm all about that. Yeah, of course, I'm about us, but I'm talking about kayak. Like you keep throwing them out. Like that's the second time now.
Own website or platform that you can recommend someone to that you personally use yourself, where they're giving you up to date COVID, restrictions for entering countries.
I don't know a black owned one, but you keep saying you say Google. What if people find their own? What if they find another? I'm just saying why. Like it's like twice now you've name dropped that company. I'm just saying, like, it's we're trying to get funding here.
People want people want you to be specific. So because
what about Black Travel Summit? We can ask Black Travel Summit. I think that would be a great feature for them, wouldn't it? Like Anita, like a place, a one-stop shop, so we know which countries are open and which countries aren't.
But this is also another thing, because I'm not anti-white. I'm pro-black, and I think if we can recommend a reputable, great black-owned company, let's do that. But if there's not any in the space, let's recommend something that works for now until someone else builds it. So listen, let's move on. Or do you want to go?
She did it again.
All right, I'm sitting back. What do we? Go ahead. You guys, go ahead. I'm getting comfortable. Go ahead.
No, that's good. You didn't say if you're going. Are you coming? Are you coming to Ghana?
Yeah, are you coming?
This December? Or where are you going?
So I am going to travel to Ghana because we do have a tour going on. I'm not going to stay throughout all of December, but what I'm personally looking forward to in December are the different experiences outside of partying, because they are going to have a few restrictions with partying. I have a great feeling that they will highlight other opportunities, such as investing in Africa, diasporans and investing on the continent, meeting with creatives on the ground in Ghana. Also, there's a lot of talk about relocating to Africa. So, now with the elections right around the corner, there's a lot of people like, if Trump wins again, I'm out. I want our first plane out. But then there's others who are like Biden or Trump. We're looking for other opportunities outside of the States, or even people in the Caribbean are looking for like the agribusiness to see what you can do regarding agriculture. So I'm looking forward to traveling to Ghana to see what investment opportunities and to meet and build long-term relationships with like-minded individuals. So I'm there for that.
I wanted to ask what you guys think about that, though. Do you feel like a lot of African countries are ready for, people from the Black diaspora to start moving there kind of en masse? Particularly, so I'm thinking of it two ways. One, from the positive angle in terms of coming to invest and coming to be part of the culture, coming to embrace all of that. But then on the flip side, I remember last year when we had the year of the return, we were all in Accra. And as much as there was the big influx of money into the Ghanaian economy, I think at the same time, there was a lot of local people that were saying, they felt as though they weren't adequately prepared for the amount of people, the amount of traffic, all of those things. So I guess there's that side to it as well. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
I mean, well, in general, though, I think that anything progressing towards the Black people getting together and sharing economics together, especially when you have either side of the diaspora coming together, is a positive. I totally understand that, of course, it's not going to be smooth, right? There's always going to be problems. As people know in Nigeria, as we say, problems day, like anywhere you go, problems day, right? So like there's going to be issues in getting it together. But just like you said, for Ghana to make as much money as they made last year, to the point that you see like our country, Nigeria, now trying to like do the same thing this year and push tourism. You see other countries in West Africa. You see even now you're seeing Egypt, countries in North Africa, really trying to promote tourism to the diaspora and focus on Black tourists. So yeah, I think it's a positive. I'm looking forward to Ghana in December. I think in general, Ghana does a great job. I think that, you know, a lot of people's fear of going to Africa, specifically going to West Africa, like, you know, power's going to go out, or, you know, might be a little bit wild, or, you know, everyone's like, oh, I'm scared to go to Africa. But, you know, I think Ghana kind of alleviates. Like I tell people, like, look, if you're a little bit like, just, you know, you're not sure about Africa, Ghana's like a nice launching pad to get you into West Africa. South Africa. Yeah, Ghana for West Africa and South Africa. Yeah, of course, for South Africa. Yeah, but like, you know, if you're scared to jump into Nigeria or jump into Cote d'Ivoire directly, like start with Ghana, and then from there, I think you'll feel a little bit easier to go. But yeah, I'm all for it. Like let's you know, get it going. Let's share some more recipes between our cultures for sure.
I like that. That sounds cute. Sharing recipes. Rosalind mentioned, you know, again, the point you brought up, David, about will Africans on the continent be ready to receive us for this exodus? And I think that we have to have those who are traveling from the diaspora moving in. You have to have a plan, but you also have to keep in mind that while Africa could run through your blood, like being an African, it's still someone else's home. So having that respect, that not to come in with preconceived notions or the idea of I'm coming to save Africa with my grand ideas and my USD. So I think just approaching the move in the most humble way, where like, what can I learn? You know, what can I offer? But also, what can I learn? And understanding that there are able-bodied, brilliant people on the continent who can do the same thing that you want to do. So instead of going with the colonizers mentality, like, let me go and take over, but more like, how can I work together? Let me find someone in the industry, maybe in the same field that I'm working in or I have interest in, and let me see how we can align, you know, what we're doing and make it work. I think that's in my personal opinion, when moving and also when traveling to the continent as well, as just leave your not only your preconceived notions, but your standards of what you think it should be. Leave that at your departing airport.
Yeah, and I guess the one thing I would say is, and I say this basically almost every week now, the biggest difference you'll find out is just the difference in capital between where you're coming from, if you're coming from the US or the UK or Canada, versus to where you're going. But as Tiffany said, brilliant people, I mean, people that are trying to get businesses off the ground that, you know, maybe you have expertise in and you can like invest in it. And I mean, stuff like being like a social media manager. Like, you can be someone's social media manager from anywhere, and you can do it, like, you know, just something really simple like that. Just connect with like-minded people who are into what you're into, because just this past week with the whole End SARS campaign, and we'll get into that a little bit more, I think you've seen the power of what can happen when we all connect digitally, especially the younger generation. So like, we should take advantage of the fact that we do speak the same language, which is this modern digital language. We should take advantage of that fact. We should like pool our resources in that way and do what we can. But I actually have a question for David.
What's up?
Sorry, I'm gonna solve this. All right.
Sexism. You want to go to the man. All right, go ahead.
I know. You know what? Actually, hold on, David. I'm gonna hold my question for you. So, Tiffany, I'm actually use this question. This is a good question. No. But this is a good question for Tiffany, because let me tell you guys something. As much as Tiffany talks about rolling around Africa and she likes to act like, you know, whatever, she's never been. Have you even been to Nigeria, Tiffany?
I have not yet.
Wow.
But before the end of the year, no COVID, honestly.
Imagine calling yourself an Africa champion. You've never set foot on Las Giri on Lagos. Hey!
Soon come. Okay, to be honest with you, when I think of traveling throughout Africa, I think of business first and foremost, with sending to our locations 4 ways to Africa. And I always looked at Nigeria as the New York. Like the New York of the continent. And so in order to go in there, you can't play any games. There's no like, oh, let me go and wing it or see if I can find, you know, email a nice tour guide who can help me out. No, man, you have to have a solid plan and great connections before traveling to Nigeria. So all of that organically came into play this year, which is why we expanded our tours to Nigeria. So I have to conduct the educational tour for our Nigerian tour. So yes, with all intentions, I'm going to Nigeria, but I was a bit, apprehensive at first. Like,
I totally understand. And let me tell you something. Excuse me.
COVID.
Let me tell you something.
Yeah, I was about to say.
No, it's all good.
Let me tell you something. Go ahead.
Wow, this is how you guys bully me.
Actually, sorry.
This is how you guys bully me. You see how you guys bully me on that? Like we're live. And you guys just bully me like this. I can't even edit this out.
Okay,
After this, I want to ask Tiffany if you're going to wear your mask if you have to travel to Africa. If you need to either a vaccine or, to be traveling to Africa. Because I think I saw an announcement from, I think it was the president of Australia today, or someone from Australia was giving a speech, and they were talking about how they plan to digitize the arrival card. So, usually when you fly, when you're arriving, you get that little card to fill in with all your details. They were talking about digitizing that. And their plan is so that hopefully by next year, the way that you need to prove that you have a COVID test now by like showing your certificate to show that you've done it, they want to incorporate that into your digital arrival card, so that actually they don't need to give you a card. They will just see when you arrive, okay, this is your digital profile. This is, when and where you did your COVID vaccine, or, when you had your last test, etc. So that's an interesting one. Like that was literally just today. That will be interesting, I guess, from now over the next year, if we get to a point where that is just part of standard travel protocol, that you have to, prove that you've had all these tests or done all these things.
You're setting me up, David, because you know how I feel like I want to bring out the conspiracy theory, person that I am. But you said that was Australia?
Yeah, that was Australia.
Then I would never go to Australia. I'm not getting a vaccination. And please, anyone do not take my personal words for what you should or shouldn't do. But I am not getting vaccination. I will proudly have my children on a continent, give birth on a continent, and travel throughout the continent, and then to Jamaica, because thank God Nigeria. You'll see me in Nigeria when that direct flight from Nigeria to Jamaica goes on. So to answer that,
but hold on, but that's what I was going to ask you actually before I started coughing with COVID. When that flight does happen, so for those who don't know, they're talking about testing out an airline that goes directly from Jamaica to Nigeria. I think part of the reason a lot of people, part of the reason that people are scared to travel to Africa is that it's hard to get there, right? And that's what Ghana's good, because there's a direct flight from JFK, New York to Ghana. There's a direct flight also from Washington, D.C. to Ghana, and I believe there's a direct flight from Atlanta to Ghana. So that that makes it easy to get to. But now that if we can connect the Caribbean, which is it's really hard for some reason to get from Africa to the Caribbean and the Caribbean back to Africa. So if we have a direct flight, Tiffany, do you think that would help? Would that help you, who lives in Kingston?
It would definitely help me, but I think we have to look at it from a larger picture that sort of kind of plays into the question that David asks, which is the requirement to travel to Europe in order to get to the continent. It's outrageous, the fact that if you're traveling from the Caribbean or from, anywhere in the diaspora, you must either touch Europe, Canada, or US in order to get in. So which means you have to get a US visa, a Canadian visa, a UK visa, or you get a Schengen visa. But there are so few direct flights to Africa originating from places outside of those major hubs. So I think with opening up this new route from Nigeria to Jamaica, it will offer the freedom and also the freedom for African nations to stop becoming so dependent, or become less dependent on Europe and America for a stop to. And then I also think it will add the potential for Jamaica as an add-on destination. So say, for instance, those who could be maybe from South America or Central America or, another place, and they're looking to go to Africa. They're like, okay, well, I can just stop in Jamaica first, stay for like 2-3 days, and then continue on to Africa. That sounds like an amazing experience. So I love the opportunity. I know Dave's a little bit upset because, he has a UK tattoo on his ankle. So what do you think about that, David?
What about being able to go direct?
Yeah, about
I think it's really good. What I'm really interested to see is how much it costs, because even going from the UK to the Caribbean is expensive. So you guys are, well, not specifically you, but Jide, in the US, you guys are lucky that I guess it's so much closer and it's cheaper. People can just go to Jamaica for fun. I can't go to Jamaica for fun. Like, you have to plan. You have to plan weeks, if not months in advance. So I'd really be interested to see how much it costs, because if it ends up being cheap enough that actually it's better to fly from Nigeria, I might just do that. But I think it's good. I think it's really good that we're connecting, because I think a lot of the time when we talk about connecting the diaspora, we're really mostly talking about connecting like the West, or in terms of Europe and the US, and not so much thinking about connecting the Caribbean to Africa, going both ways as well. And I think that's going to be a huge aspect of us progressing, you know, as a global Black diaspora, is having that connection and having more people that have the experience of going to and from the continent and going to and from the Caribbean as well. Because, sorry, just to follow on from that, I think a lot of the time, as much as I think it's important for lots of people to travel to Africa and travel to the continent, I also think it's super important for people to travel to the Caribbean as well. So I think that's a good link up going that way too.
So I want to pivot just really quickly and take advantage of the fact that we're actually having a live taping of this, so we can get feedback in real time. But somebody in the comments was talking about that they've never been to Africa because they heard mixed reviews on how Black Americans are received, but they are hoping to go to Ghana soon. I want to like bring this point up because I think this actually touches on another topic that we're going to talk about a little bit later. But, you know, you hear this a lot, I think, and you hear this from all sides in the sense that you don't get a ton of people traveling to Africa because they don't know how they'll be received there, if they're Black American or if they're Black from the UK or from the Caribbean. But at the same time, you also hear apprehensions about Africans coming to the West, not only to America and Canada, but also to the Caribbean and how they're treated there. You know, and I think that as somebody who, obviously you guys can hear me talk, so I sound American, obviously. So when I'm in Nigeria, it doesn't matter that my parents live in Nigeria. It doesn't matter that I live there. None of that matters. As soon as I open my mouth, I'm American. So I know what it's like to be American in Africa because I know immediately how they treat you. And like certain things that just like, you can't get over. It just sucks. Like you walk into a market and immediately know you're paying double the price of anyone else. Literally just by walking in, just like me right now, just walking in. Oh, double the price for him, right? So I know how that's like. And at the same time, I also know what it's like to be African in America because I grew up in the States. I went to high school here. I was the African, right? So like, let me tell you, it's a much easier road being an American in Africa than being an African in America. Like it's a much easier road. So like, you know, I say that to say that there's bridges that we kind of have to cross together, and you know, nobody wins when the diaspora feuds, right? So like we kind of have to like learn to play together. And I do think the first step in that is travel. And that's why Dirty December was so amazing last year and was such a flagship because you saw the cultures really mix. And it wasn't just like, you know, wealthy people or celebrities, which you did see a lot of that. So American celebrities in Ghana, UK celebrities in Ghana, African celebrities, all mixing, taking pictures together. But regular folks, college students, like people together, like just like enjoying each other and understanding that we were finally in an environment where we can really be free to do what we want to do. And for those of us who live in the West, we know that that's not always possible to be free in your Blackness. So I do think, though, that, you know, there's things that mentally we kind of have to get over, and mentally we kind of have to kind of understand each other a little bit better and communicate a little bit better. But the future, no doubt, is together. Like it has to be together.
Right. And I think the conversation has to, I think that's the first step. I think the person who said that in the comments, it's an understandable thought to have, but I would just say get on the plane, because for so many years we didn't travel to Africa because the way the media portrayed Africa of, oh, it's uncivilized and oh, you shouldn't. And now we are becoming our own, you know, question of doubt of why we should go to the continent, when really there's so many, you know, it's attainable now. To get to the continent is something that you can actually plan for and do. And I think if you were to even ask your grandparents, did they have the same mindset of, oh, let's get up and go to Africa for December, you know, to Ghana for December? Those opportunities didn't exist. So I think we should just take advantage of what's in front of us and dispel the, really what we hear, but we know not to be true. So, and then talk to your friends. Talk to some friends who have traveled and see what their opinion on with how they were received. But as you mentioned, Judy, I think honor is a great introduction for those who are looking to travel into the continent. I want to ask you, David, a question.
Let's go.
You know, it still would have to do with the requirement to stop over in order to get into the continent. Or we can actually jump into the questions. Which one? Do you want to jump into?
Oh, we don't have 10 minutes left. I don't know.
What do you want to talk about?
We can do it after.
We can talk about Soares. We can jump into a
No,
question.
go ahead. Ask him your question, Tiffany, and then we'll move on to something else.
My question was about the requirement to stop over in UK most of the time from those who are traveling from the West to get into the continent. What's your view on that, and do you think it has to do anything, let's say, with maybe post-colonial wars, that the hubs are placed there intentionally for people to have to stop in UK or Amsterdam or the States?
It's an interesting question, actually. I haven't thought about that aspect of it a tremendous amount, I guess because I'm already in the UK, so I can fly from here. But no, it's true. And I think actually sometimes, you know, even there are some flights where you have to fly somewhere else in Europe. So maybe you'll fly to Germany or you'll fly to France and then you can fly from there. And that goes also if you're flying to more Francophone countries. So I think it's a really interesting question. And it also brings up, there was a discussion I was seeing, I think it was on Twitter earlier today, where people were talking about the fact that even with, I know we're going to talk about SARS and what's going on in Nigeria now at the moment, but France kind of chiming in on that from the perspective that Nigeria as an African country, population-wise, is probably about almost half of that corner of Africa. And from the economy side, it's also about 50% or 60% of the revenues coming within that region of Africa as well. But France has like 8 or 9 Francophone countries that it's still taking money from, which is almost like direct competition. So actually, when things happen in Nigeria or when things are going on within that region, that's also affecting France's interests in the region as well. And so they want to get involved or they want to be part of it. And I think it exposes a whole layer of, you know, as much as there might be politics within Africa or travel considerations within Africa, there's a lot more that goes on behind that. Like people also talking about, even with SARS in Nigeria, the fact that they're funded by the British Foreign Office. So there's a lot of these things, and that goes all the way back to, you know, the Biafra War, where, you know, the British would be funding one side of the war and not the other, things like that. So I think there's so many things in everyday life and culture that we don't necessarily realize the extent to which there are colonial interests involved, whether that's, you know, Britain funding certain things or France collecting taxes in certain ways from lots of different countries. And I'm sure that does play a huge part in how they determine who can fly to where and which routes that you have to take. And I also think, you know, by having maybe France as a hub going to some countries, of course, maybe you're going to want to come out, you'll probably spend some money in France, then you'll go to a country that France also collects taxes from, etc., etc. So it's a really interesting dynamic when you think about it.
All right. I think we have to close up.
Hold on, Tiffany, though, but I can't. We can't close out without saying EmCee though. So I gotta say, I feel you need to go. Like I'm too Nigerian to be on here and not close out without saying EmCee. So
I want to go before we go to EmCee, the people who are in the comments who were talking about going into the market and being overcharged, I would just give 3 quick pointers. Always travel with someone who's local if you have that availability. If not, make sure that you know how to say how much in the language, the local language, and also travel with their currency. Do not travel with your own currency, because as soon as you pull out that euro or USD, it's a wrap. So that's my quick recommendations.
And number 4, remember that you earn US dollars and pounds. Please don't haggle in whatever over $2. All right, it means a lot more to them than to you.
Although interestingly, though, Tiffany, one thing I would say though is I would also recommend, even I, as a British person, I carry dollars like as my backup currency going almost everywhere, especially even within Africa. because I remember where was I? I think it was Tanzania or somewhere. I was traveling somewhere in Africa, and traveling from the UK is meant to be visa free. I arrived, they were now telling me that, oh, I have to pay for this entry visa, this and that. They were trying to not let me leave the airport, and they wanted me to pay for something in dollars, as in I had to convert and they didn't have anything to convert from pounds. So I had to convert pounds to the local currency and then convert the local currency to dollars so that I could pay this guy in dollars so I could leave the airport. So sometimes I would also say it can be good to carry a little bit of dollars just as a backup.
Nope.
And SARS.
And
SARS.
Okay, so let's
100%.
jump into that. So G-Day, can you give us a quick recap of what the movement of EmSARS was about and what we're currently looking at to date?
The movement for EmSARS is to end the Special Anti-Robbery Squad. It's a squad in Nigeria. Was started by the federal government years ago to help sophisticated crime. Quickly, they turned into a gang themselves. There's been multiple incidents for them over the last 30 years of them actually robbing people. So if you have an electronic device, laptop, iPhone, you are a target for SARS. They'll say, oh, well, you know, how did you get that? Do you have a receipt for all sorts of things? They can extort you, take you to the ATM, you know, they were protected by the state essentially. So finally, I think we've had enough is enough. There's been too many deaths. We've had video, too many stories, like enough is just enough. So the youth of Nigeria are in the streets saying to end SARS. Do not let them change the name and call it something else. But the beautiful thing is that now you're seeing a united generation in a way backed by digital unity in a way that you've never seen before. So please find local people that you can and donate where you can. All the donations are transparent. They're really helping strategize and move people around on the ground. So and SARS.
I just wanted to say two things about that really quickly. Like, first of all, you're 100% right in terms of how being digital has completely changed how, as Africans, we're able to connect one with each other in terms of people that are outside of Africa or outside of Nigeria or somewhere else in the Black diaspora, but even within Nigeria, being able to coordinate in the ways that people are, being able to send money to support. That's like, thinking about that maybe even 10, 15 years ago would have been almost impossible. Like, it would not have been possible on the same scale. Having Twitter, having Instagram, having a lot of these things, being able to record and share videos so people know live what's going on in different places and getting news from all around Nigeria all at once and all around Africa is a huge game changer. And the other thing that I wanted to say is in terms of, I think I'm just really proud of, you know, Nigeria and Nigerians and everything that they're doing right now, honestly, because I was born in Ghana. I grew up in Nigeria before coming to the UK. And okay, Tiffany's gonna be talking.
No,
but anyway,
it's Nigerian only on Thursdays. Sundays.
What I wanted to say was, so even when we talk about NEPA or electricity in Nigeria, growing up, there was no 24-hour electricity in Nigeria. Even when I came to the UK at first, you know, you go to school in the UK, people will make jokes about how there's no 24-hour electricity. 10 to 15 years later, there's still no 24-hour electricity. I think there's a lot of things within Nigeria that people knew was dysfunctional. You'll have politicians stealing money, you'll have this, you'll have that, you'll have corruption. And a lot of the time, I think it had become very easy to just accept it as the status quo. Like, there was so much that within Nigeria that people just accepted as, that's just how it is. If SARS come and beat you up, if the police officers are on the street, if something happens, that's just life, that's just how it is. And I'm glad that people are finally reaching a point where we're realizing we can actually change things, and we don't have to wait for politicians to change it for us. We don't have to wait for waiting for all these people. Right. We can go out on the streets and we can create our own change. And I think Nigeria is now, as a result of people protesting, is changing at a rate that it would never have under just normal voting and democracy and waiting and all of those things.
Hey, someone asked real quick about how do we show EmSARS donations going to the appropriate org. Almost all of them, if you're in the West, if you're in the US or the UK, the ones that you find to donate to are going to be appropriate. And you can even track about how transparent the stuff is. I don't have a website on me right now, but also if you check out Travel and Turn Up, check us out on social media and also our latest episode, because we will give the website when we release our latest episode that you can just go to, and literally a $10 donation goes so far. So like
especially when you convert the currency.
Exactly. And like David was saying, it's really like pushing to end bad governance, because SARS is just indicative of everything wrong with governance in Nigeria. So end that. I know we're about to cut off
I
soon.
think it's a good way to close out also what David said, that we need to be the change that we want to become and stop waiting for our politicians to be our leaders. Stop using the term politicians and
still, please vote.
Yes, please vote, but also personally be that change that you want to see day by day with small actions. So on that note, I think we have to close out. We usually close out with a big tune, so we can't play the video, but give us a big tune, G-Day or David. What are you rocking out to today?
Anointed.
Yeah,
by Nina Sola. So, and Nina Sola, Anointed. Check it out.
Okay, and vote. All right, give thanks, everyone. Travel and Turn Up. Oh, yeah, so our information is at the top for you to check out our podcast. Every week we have this Trends and Tings where, we go back and forth, quite interesting dialogue, as well as interviewing CEOs in Black spaces and throughout the community. So give thanks again, and hopefully you'll tune in for Travel and Turn Up soon.